There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, it's episode 100.
Yep, we're here. Here's the show you've been waiting for.
And look, if you're watching this on YouTube, then look, you can see our
faces.
delightful faces.
Yeah. 100 episode.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you're listening to the audio version, then you can't see our delightful faces, and you will just have to imagine them like usual. We've already actually recorded most of the bulk of this show.
It's already in the can.
It's already in the can. Yeah. You will see it shortly. We have special guests, Shana and Eric and Demonika from BattleGlitta.
Right.
They spent pretty much an entire day with us, drinking, recording, talking about creepy disappearances, horrible murders of entire families. So, you know, it's a good time.
But we have to do the shout-outs that we would normally do for a normal show, so we're going to have to do those now, because we couldn't do them then.
Yeah, true.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do now. Just really briefly, because this is our 100th episode, I mean, we started this show, back in summer of 2016, and we really appreciate everybody that's kind of come along on this ride with us. We didn't really know what to expect. We just kind of started 13 o'clock to, as a fun thing for us to do.
And we picked up a lot of heavy hitters in terms of patrons, too. A lot of $20, $25 a month people, We're really grateful for you guys' support.
Oh, yeah. And really, like, any support you can give us, just, like, giving us a like, sharing a video, supporting us on Patreon, anything is sending us messages, giving us topic ideas and stuff. It's all of that is really, really appreciated.
Yeah, and we made good friends through the show, too.
We really have. And there's, like, all over the world, people are sending, they're all excited about it. And that's so cool. Like, I never really thought that would happen. Yeah. And so I think that's really awesome. And I think the 100th episode is a good time to reflect on that. Mm-hmm. Now, the only other thing I want, look at his. Yeah,
that's my bucket that I'm talking about. My bucket of
I think I mentioned this on the other part of the show too that we already recorded. Look, he made me one too, but this
not tequila though.
This is a bucket of Bloody Mary
with pickle juice.
With pickle juice in it.
You should try it.
It's
really good.
Fantastic. It's magical.
Recipes online.
Yeah, it's really good. Like maybe some people might think it's gross, but
you use the hot V8, the hot and spicy V8. You want to use a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And then put some pickle juice in it, along with the vodka.
Hell yeah. Pickle juice makes everything better. I don't know if I want to say that, like, uncategorically, that pickle juice makes everything better. What about an ice cream, Jenny? What about that?
Well, actually, in the original recipe, they said make ice cubes out of pickle juice.
Out of pickle juice. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. That's like, I'm too lazy to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pour it right in there. But yeah, so basically, our same shout-outs as usual. Please support the show on Patreon if you would like to, which is patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. Also, check out our last movie review, which was Tobe Hooper's 1985 Life Force.
Yeah.
The Space Vampires movie.
That shit was weird, man.
It was a very weird movie. I'm surprised it doesn't have a bigger cult following.
Had that girl running around butt ass naked through half the film, though.
Right.
How could that have flopped? I don't understand.
The entire male half of our listenership just went, well, I'm gonna go check that shit out. You should. It's worth it.
I want to get that on Blu-ray.
She has very nice perky titties.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know all about boobs. I live with some monsters right here.
He lives with you can't really see them because
you can't see them. Because
I'm not. Yeah, and plus I'm wearing a t-shirt, so you can't really see them. I'm not gonna take your suggestion.
Yeah, I had this idea.
Listen to this idea.
I forgot how it went. It was like.
What do you mean how it went? It was a pretty simple idea.
Said, if they send us $75, you can fucking pop them babies out on them.
And I was like, I don't know if I want you to mention that on the show or not.
Show up on fucking Pornhub.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And now, plus I'm going to
show up on Pornhub where they belong.
Where they belong. Pornhub, lift us up where we belong.
Yeah.
I'm singing a song about titties on Pornhub. Okay, so the only reason, like, we wanted to record this little intro, and we also had to, during our 10 family massacres segment, our 9th segment, the audio got fucked up. Like, for some reason, like, the 10th segment was fine. The 9th segment, the audio started going...
Yeah.
And, like, pretty much the whole thing was fucked up. And
we're going to fix it, though.
So we're just going to record that one. So that's why when you're watching the show, it's all of us looking, like, in different outfits and with different people involved. And we're talking about that.
With
and then
cats
all of us...
and shit jumping
with
in.
Cats and shit and everything.
Cats in the sink, all kinds of stuff.
And then suddenly... Here's us again with our little smiling faces.
I'm going to show you guys my Blu-ray collection where all the Blu-rays live.
Your Blu-rays?
Blu-rays live. Yeah, terrible.
I know. So, hopefully you guys enjoy this little video intro. Like I said, if you're listening to the audio version, obviously you're going to have to imagine what we look like still. Or just look us up on Google. Why?
I'll do what I want to do.
Oh.
Man said I could.
He's giving me smoke for, like, atmosphere.
And, it's kind of like, like Luke, I'm your father. Actually, it never. That little boy never says, man said I could. He never does through all that.
That killed me when I went.
Never says that.
When we did that episode, and I scrubbed back through the whole entire episode to get an audio clip of him saying that, and he never says that.
No. He just says, man said it'd be okay.
He says, man said it would be okay. Man said it would be fun.
Fun, yeah.
And man said I don't have to listen to you.
Man said I don't have to listen to you. I like that one, too, though. Man said I don't have to listen to you.
I was going to put that on the shirt, but then I thought that it was too long.
Yeah.
To fit in
that
the
little
word bubble.
Yeah, a little bit. Wouldn't have been good.
So, well, because the thing is, we say man said I could,
yeah.
and it's,
it's better.
It's more succinct.
It's better.
They didn't say exactly that on the show, but fuck it. Whatever. All right. So that'll do it for this introduction. Please enjoy the very drunk, very entertaining rest of the show.
We're not that drunk in it, I don't think. No.
No, not really.
No, it's just normal.
Yeah, it's just our normal level of drunk. So, please enjoy.
The 100th episode. This is the 100th.
Oh.
Not the 98th, not the 99th, it's the 100th.
This is so exciting, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I can't believe that we've actually done 100 of these things.
And we have guests with us tonight.
We love this fucking show.
Yeah. This is Shana and Eric, good friends of ours.
This is Demonika.
And this is Demonika, their baby. Okay, it's kind of stiff. But, we're going to do a bunch of different things. What's one of the things we're going to do? Lists? What else?
Yeah, this is kind of going to be like sort of a variety type show. Since it's our 100th episode and we had so many people request that we do video because we don't usually. So we said, well, we'll at least do video for part of this episode.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to make certain edits. So when you see like stills pop up, we're cheating. We're going to fucking...
That's if we lost our place and we're like sitting there going, what?
Yeah. But if you guys are ready, go ahead and roll what you're going to have to roll. Of course, I got my famous jar here.
Yeah, now you guys can see it.
It's not tequila, it's Keela.
Do you guys see?
I've eliminated the tea.
Do you guys see how ridiculous? Just show.
Fucking ridiculous.
Look at it.
Look how fucking ridiculous
Look
that
at
shit
it.
is. It's crazy.
And that is your fourth one.
She's ratting on me.
I think.
Hey,
this is my fourth one too. I'm not gonna. But see, mine are small.
Uh-huh.
Mine are small.
How
well, because I thought I
we're making this shit up as we go along.
Yeah, I definitely didn't really plan this at all. So don't get mad. But people seem to like that though. Mm-hmm. They seem to like that. When we just totally go off script. Well, when you go off script.
Mm. Which? Shit. I go off script because I don't have a script. I'm just making this up as I go along. That's what I
mean. I'm the only one that has a script.
What do you think? What do you think of this, Sean?
I'm excited for whatever the hell's gonna happen.
You're just gonna roll with it, huh? You want a drink? You guys got everything? Okay, good. What you drinking?
I got some Kona.
Kona.
Fire Rock Pale Ale.
Fire Rock Pale Ale. What you got?
I never drink, but I'm drinking. If I drink stouts. And this is a milk stout, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
What you're hearing there is pure Brockton. Pure Brockton. It's from Boston, I put my eyes in when
You don't.
Yeah. No R's there. No R's.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, we have to introduce the zombie baby.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is Demonika. This is our well, we have a thing called BattleGlitta. We make battle vests. Well, he handles I make them and he handles the bullshit.
Why don't you bring her up to the camera and show her to the camera?
This is our spooks model.
Demonika. Yeah.
A child laborer.
Yeah.
You made that jacket, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you make the jacket that you're wearing?
I sure did.
And man, show them the back.
I sure did.
Show them the back. Show them the back. Show them the back. Yeah. Okay.
See,
Cool.
isn't it fantastic?
She made all this.
Made all that too, huh?
Yeah, all of it, all of
Okay.
it.
And that can be found
Show
on
them,
what?
show-
Facebook, BattleGlitta?
BattleGlitta.
BattleGlitta with an A.
Etsy, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah. So everybody look that up.
Okay, cool. So you want to begin the show?
Yeah, like I
Let's
said,
begin the show.
I totally did not really prepare a lot for this at all, and I'm kind of drunk already.
You've been drinking.
But yeah, well, no, I'm good though.
It's all right. We all been drinking.
And like I said, I've had several requests to do more creepy disappearances.
Yeah.
We did a show before, and I think we did 5 episodes on there. I think we maybe did Terry Calico and Maura Murray and some of the more famous ones. So I wanted to do another 10 of those.
All right.
So some of these, like I said, don't get all up my ass.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Don't get all up my ass
Wait,
if
wait,
I
hold on.
could, because
I'm
some
getting
of
up her
these.
ass now?
Well,
What
no,
is that?
I'm just telling you ahead of time because some of these are very complicated.
Okay.
And I took a lot of notes, but there's like a lot of notes, and so I have to kind of go through these, in a thing. And like I said, we're filming this in our house. This is
We're at our own private bar.
This is our living room.
We're at our own private bar at our estate.
So we might have things happen, like for example, one of the cats is running around over there.
Yeah, jumping up on top of
Jumping
the
on top of the washing
Yeah.
machine. The ice maker might do some shit. So it's
all good. They're in our home. Why don't you
what
guys
I-
come over here so you guys can get so we can see. That's right.
Ow, my feet.
Yeah. You guys can come closer.
Oh,
Get
Demonika,
ready.
she's drunk.
Oh no, the baby is drunk.
She thought-
All right. We're ready to go.
All right, so let's talk about this first case.
Damn, cats are fighting.
Oh no!
Look at this shit.
Are
Go
they
ahead.
really?
Go ahead. What you doing?
All right,
What are you doing? Go ahead.
get out.
Go ahead. All right. Have fun. All right. Whatever.
All right, so this first case that we're going to talk. Get your book back over here, okay?
I'm over here.
All right. So the first case we're going to talk about, like I said, the first top 10 we're going to do is more creepy disappearances. So let's talk about the case of Asha Degree. Now this happened. She was actually born in 1990. She went missing in 2000
All right.
when she was 10 years old. The creepiest thing about this, now she's a she's a very little girl. Her family were kind of religious, and they were kind of one of those families. They didn't have a computer in their house. Like they were, they didn't really want the outside world influencing them. They were very into the church and stuff. And so it's funny because, well, not funny, but there was a quote from her mom or her dad where she said, every time you turn on the TV, you just see pedophiles trying to get little kids through the internet.
Wait a
and
minute.
stuff.
Hold on. Wait, what year was this?
2000.
Okay.
So, so they were kind of one of those families who were like, well, we just want to keep everything like, just keep it within the church and the family. We can't have it a computer or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the kids seemed all right with this. I mean,
right.
they were very active in their church. They were very active in their school and whatever. Now, the weird thing, though, is that on Valentine's Day of 2000, for whatever reason, the little girl, she was acting totally normal that day. She went to bed. Now, her dad says that he thought he heard her bed creak or something, but he checked on the kids like several times over the night. Like I think the last time he checked them was like 2:30 a.m. or something, because I think
Right.
he actually worked at night. So he checked on them when he got home, and it was totally fine. Sometime around 4:30 a.m., the little girl got out of bed, got her book bag, which she presumably had packed a day or two before with stuff, and left the house. And so they see her, like several motorists like saw her like walking along the street, and they said the weather was like shitty. It was cold out, it was
Yeah.
storming. And there's this little girl, like, well, she's 10 years old, and she's like walking along the side of the highway or whatever with a book bag. So one motorist actually, you know, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning. One motorist actually, you know, saw her and he was like, what the hell? So he turned around to help her out. And when she saw the car stopping, she took off into the woods.
Yeah, I thought it was a perv coming.
And that was the last time that anyone ever saw her. Huh. Now, no one can figure out, because her mom was like, you know, she was scared to leave the house. She was scared of dogs. She was scared of other people. It's like, you know, she never really went outside or went outside the yard or anything. Why would she just like suddenly pack up all her shit and leave?
Running away, maybe?
So, but she's much younger. Now, at first, that was the thing they thought, because obviously it was something that she had planned.
Yeah.
Because she had put her clothes in her little book bag and stuff and taken off, but they don't know if it was entirely her idea. Right. Or if somebody had gotten to her and told her that she had to, you know, come there or meet them or
maybe
for
she's
whatever
running
reason.
off with some boyfriend.
But she was
10.
awful little, though.
I don't know. Maybe some guy.
It just seemed really, really weird. Yeah. And you know, it's like her parents were just kind of like, why would she do that? It really. So
they never found the body.
No. The only thing they ever found, like a couple years later, I think it was a couple years later, they actually found, when they were doing construction in this one area, they found her backpack, like buried or something, and it was in a plastic bag. Like, but the only thing they ever found, like when they went out and looked for her, all they found, like they found like a barrette that was hers, you know, like a little, like a marker or something, like out in the woods. But it must have been. But the thing, you know, did somebody get her? You know, did somebody tell her to leave the house and, hey, come meet me here, or something bad will happen? Or did she just decide to leave on her own and then somebody got her?
No, it wasn't a coincidence. No, it wasn't a coincidence.
Well, it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been.
Stuff was found in plastic. You
said?
She was meeting somebody and the dude offed her.
Yeah. That's like really bizarre. And it's really sad because you know, her family obviously has kept up a vigil, and they actually have they bought a big billboard where she ran off into the woods when that guy in the car stopped to help her.
There's
and it's still there.
Though. She was running off to meet somebody, and then that guy faked her death. You know what I mean? By burying her bag, making it look like he knocked her off so they wouldn't look for her.
Yeah.
Could be that she switched houses. Maybe she's living with some other guy.
That's pretty weird, though. I mean, for a 10-year-old kid, and particularly for one that
this is a weird world we live in.
But I mean, particularly one, like a little girl that was so sheltered, evidently.
That might have made her an easier prey.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because that's the thing. Like, if somebody, like, what if somebody approached her? Like, what if some weirdo, like, approached her at church? Because they were super, like, into their church and stuff. What if some weirdo approached her at church and was like...
That's likely. Somebody from church that she
That's
knows.
what I'm thinking. They're like, oh, well, I'm gonna kill your mom unless you come...
I don't think that's what it was. I think it was something like, you'd be better off over here with me, you know what I mean? That kind of deal. Maybe it was a guy in his 20s.
Maybe.
He had that kind of pedo leaning, of course, you know what I mean?
The pedo leaning.
And, you know, he was just like, why don't you come and move in with me? Well, you know, we'll have a lot more fun, and you won't have to listen to them, type of deal, you know? Yeah. And, you know, then he staged her death. Something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty weird, but yeah.
That's just what I'm thinking.
So, like I said...
If they never found the body...
No, they didn't.
I would think that they would have probably found the body by now. There's a chance she's alive. Probably pretty good chance.
Yeah, actually the last, according to Wikipedia, the last lead that the FBI got was in May of 2016, and evidently a witness came forward later on, and they said that they thought they had seen her getting into a dark green early 1970s Lincoln Continental, or possibly a Ford Thunderbird, and this was along the same road where she was seen by multiple motorists, but that's the last lead they've gotten. They've searched that whole area many, many times and have not found anything, like I said, except for a couple of little things that were her, like,
I got a weird feeling that girl's still alive. I just do.
It does happen. I mean, you know.
You got a feeling that girl might still be alive.
It does happen. I mean, it has happened before where somebody got kidnapped and then they got kept as a sex slave for like 18 years or some shit. You know, it's rarer. Usually they'll.
She was going out to meet him. I got this idea that it was a relationship. That's what I think.
I don't know.
I think the girl got kind of...
If she was older, I might lean toward that, but because she was so young, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the FBI kind of thought, they're like, oh, well, she was probably just a runaway, but they're like, man, they're like, you don't usually see kids running away until they're about 12 and up. That's pretty young. You know?
We don't know what was happening at the house, though.
That's true.
What was happening at home.
That's true.
We don't know what was happening
But
at the
yeah.
house. Anything could have been happening.
True.
She was like,
That's
I'm out of
true.
here.
But yeah, so that was a pretty weird case. All of these, as far as I know, pretty much all of these are still unsolved. They don't know where any of these people are.
That sucks.
So, okay, this one is from 1965. Now, here's this woman named Mary Shotwell Little. She's 25 years old. She works as a secretary. She had just gotten married like 6 weeks before. So, it's mid-October. It's October 14th. Her husband has gone out of town, like on a business trip, which he had planned, so everybody knew about it and everything. Now, Mary, she goes and has dinner with a coworker of hers, and then she was acting totally normal. 8 p.m., she's going toward her parked car, which was a 1965 Mercury Comet. And I think that was the last time anybody ever saw her. She didn't show up for work the next day, so her employer calls and there's nobody there. So they go to the Lenox Square Shopping Center where she had eaten dinner with a friend the night before, and they find her car there. And inside the car was folded up a pair of women's underwear, a slip and a girdle, very neatly folded. A bra was lying on the floorboard alongside a stocking which had been cut by a knife. Her car keys, purse, and all of the rest of her clothing were gone. There were traces of blood on the undergarments and throughout the vehicle, along with an unidentified fingerprint in the blood on the steering wheel, but the amount of blood was not large enough to suggest any sort of life-threatening injury. They said it could have been a nosebleed.
Yes, I was thinking that someone punched her.
Right. They actually, her and her husband they kept a mileage log on the car, and they were able to determine that there were 41 miles, which were unaccounted for. Now, here was the weird thing, though. Her gas card was used later on, like the next day. The first time it was used happened in the middle of the night in Charlotte, which was where Mary Shotwell was from originally. And then 12 hours later, it was used again in Raleigh. And the credit slips had what appeared to be her signature on them. Now, they said the weird thing is that they interviewed both of these gas station attendants. Yeah. And both of them said, well, one of them said that that Mary had been there and she had been in the company of a man who seemed to be controlling her and would not make eye contact. The second gas station attendant said that she was in the company of two men and said she was behaving strangely, like they weren't allowing her to talk. So they said it was kind of weird, though, because it had been like 12 hours from between when the gas station attendant saw her, even though those cities are only 3 hours apart. So, they looked into the husband and stuff like that, but he'd been out of town. He was on a business trip. He didn't seem super worried that she was gone, which they thought was a little suspicious, but he passed a lie detector test and all this other stuff. And, they said Mary hadn't complained about him or anything. They'd only been married for like 6 weeks. Her husband actually later got a ransom call asking for $20,000 for her return. And the caller said, you have to go to this particular overpass and there will be a sign there that's going to have further instructions on it. So he went there and there was a piece of paper like taped onto this sign, but there was nothing on it. It was blank. So, yeah.
It was a test.
Yes.
They were watching that to see who was going to show up.
Now, some of her co-workers claimed that a few weeks before she disappeared, she'd been getting a bunch of phone calls at work that seemed to upset her. And also, she had gotten a dozen roses at work from a, admirer. And this also seemed to upset her. So then there was this other woman who she told the police that she had been in the parking lot where Mary's car was found on the same day that Mary disappeared. And she said this guy with a brown crew cut came up to her and like knocked on her car window and told her that her back tire was low, but it wasn't. So they don't know if this is some dude that's just like cruising through this parking lot, like picking people up, or if there was some kind of plot to get her. Later on, there was a guy that was in prison in Georgia who had, in an unrelated case, and he said that, oh, I know two guys who had been given $5,000 apiece to kill her, but he didn't have any reason, like why.
Sounds like jailbird bullshit.
Right. See, that's what I mean. So, the FBI were just like, okay. Yeah. They didn't really take it seriously. The creepiest thing about this, well, one of the creepiest things about this case, so after Mary disappeared, this other girl obviously had to take over her job because she was gone, and that girl got murdered too.
Damn. Did they find out who did that?
I think that now this girl, she was 22 years old. It was a couple years later. It was 1967.
Just luck.
Yeah. So her name was Diane Shields. And she left work, she disappeared, and then later she was found dead in the trunk of her vehicle several hours later, suffocated with a scarf and a piece of paper from a phone book shoved down her throat. So nothing was, she wasn't raped, there was no robbery, nothing like that. So they don't know if those two are related, probably not, but that really does seem creepy that she took over that woman's job and then she got murdered too. Yeah. Like a little while later.
This sounds like somebody that knew her did this.
Might have been,
because they said that she was getting disturbed. She was acting.
Yeah,
like she was
it sounded like a stalker. Yeah. It sounded like a stalker.
Maybe like an ex.
Yeah.
She got messed up with somebody, the wrong person.
It must have been.
Yeah.
And for some reason she couldn't tell her husband. Right?
Might have been.
Yeah.
Now, there are also some investigators that suspect that she left voluntarily and staged the scene.
It's possible.
Which is possible.
Staged disappearance, ran off with a new man.
But like I said, it seems kind of strange. They hadn't been married that long.
And that's kind of extreme for a woman that doesn't have children. She didn't have children, did she?
No,
it's not like she was running from kids. You can run from a husband easy. You just say, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it was harder back then, sure, but it does seem...
You don't have to stage a disappearance to leave a husband.
Yeah. I'm always kind of like I know some people do that, but it seems
shit.
like a lot of trouble when you could just leave. Yeah.
You can just say,
it's like, look, I'll make it look like somebody punched me in the face and abducted me.
Yeah.
But really, I don't know. I'm not buying it. I kind of feel like... if the shit that her coworkers were saying was true about her getting all these weird phone calls and stuff and getting roses and all that, then I'm kind of thinking it was probably a stalker.
She was dating somebody behind her old man's back.
Might have been.
That dude was a psycho, and he and this boy said, "We're gonna take her, and then we're gonna hold her for ransom. Mm-hmm. She ain't going out with me, so let's make some money off this." Yep. There's something like that. Something like that.
Yeah. Now, okay, so this third case...
Although that sounds like I'm blaming the victim a little bit.
Yeah, well...
I'm not. I'm just talking about likelihood.
It's a likely scenario.
It's a likely scenario.
It's just
like that first little girl that disappeared. I'm not saying her parents would do anything bad to her. I'm just saying we don't know what was going on in that house.
Well, yeah,
I think a lot of that shit about when kids leave, something's going on in the house. It may not have been anything serious. She just, didn't like
when
house.
you're 10, it's
10,
you don't exactly have the most.
They took Winnie the Pooh away or some shit like that.
They took Winnie the Pooh away.
Hey man, I'm just coming at you with something.
They took Winnie the Pooh away. I'm leaving. That's I don't know. That seems a little extreme. All right. So this third case, this is actually kind of famous because this kid was actually one of the first kids that appeared on the back of the milk cartons.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So this was Johnny Gosh.
Gosh.
Born in 1969, disappeared in September of 1982, and he was 12 years old. And he was actually a paperboy. And he was last seen picking up his newspapers very early in the morning, going his route. Then later on, his parents started getting phone calls from all these angry people. It's like, hey, where the hell's my newspaper?
Yeah.
And they went and found his little wagon that was all full of newspapers, but he was gone. So the crazy thing about this one is that Now, I mean, obviously the kid was probably abducted, right? I mean, they probably just took him right off the street. His mom, Noreen, seems to think that he is still alive and that he got kidnapped to be like in a child sex ring or, be
what year was this?
Pornography, 1982. She claims that many years later, when Johnny Gosch was an adult, when he was like 27, that he came to her house with another guy, but the other guy was like not really letting him talk. And
I think I heard this story.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous case.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not sure because, this is a terrible thing to say, like her, her kid got kidnapped and everything, but she sounds a little bit nutty. A little bit. But it could be true. I don't know.
You can steal a kid from a nutty person. You can.
Right. I'm just saying, and it sucks, and it sucks that her kid is gone and she didn't know what happened to him. But she claimed many years later that a 27-year-old Johnny Gosch came to her house and that there was another guy with her, and so she thought that he had been taken into this huge like pedophile ring. So she even testified before Congress and shit like that. And they did take some of her shit seriously. There was some kind of pedophile ring. They did look into it. But the FBI are kind of like, and her ex-husband, because I think the husband divorced her later on, he was kind of like, I don't know if that ever happened. Like, right. I don't know if that kid actually came out. Right, so, and the problem...
It's unlikely.
Yeah.
A guy being missing that long that he's still alive.
Yeah, I mean,
but then again,
it's possible, but I don't know how likely.
A lot of stuff's rumored, and a lot of stuff came true. About weird, even pedophile rings inside Hollywood, and that was true. And
that's
what
I mean. It could be true, but I have to say that one of the things that makes me kind of doubt it a little bit is that she says that somebody left photos on her doorstep of 3 boys that were like tied up, and she says that one of them was him, but then later on when they investigated, they actually found out that this photograph, it was just 3 boys like fucking around. They were like, they thought they were being Houdini and they were gonna escape and all this other kind of stuff. Like so
it was left on
that
her.
photo was investigated.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't know if it was, but she claimed that it was, and she's like, oh, here's the photograph and I have it. But
I'm starting to not believe this woman.
So evidently the FBI looked into it and said, no, that is not a criminal photo. That was just 3 kids. We've identified these kids. Yeah. That's not your son. So, but she still thinks that it is.
Okay.
So I don't really know. And like I said, I don't know if this kid is still alive. Now the weird thing too is that, and that happened in 2006. Now she has actually self-published a book called Why Johnny Can't Come Home. About how he's gotten all mixed up in this child porn ring, and they're not letting him contact her or anything.
I just got to say that on the surface, it sounds like a motherly fantasy that the boy is still alive.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That's kind of it does kind of sound like, and that's
really
and it's sad. It's sad that.
I think that's what really happened.
And I'm not saying it's not impossible that that's
very
what's going,
unlikely.
but it's very, very
unlikely.
And but it's understandable
FBI
that
say the same thing. They're gonna go.
It's understandable that like if your 12-year-old kid gets abducted, for Christ's sake, I mean you are gonna hold out hope that they're still alive, of course.
And it's happened before. They've been abducted, and then they've been under the influence of some pedo for fucking 5, 10, sometimes 15,
it has
20
happened.
years, and then all of a sudden they resurface. They come back. It's happened, but it's very rare.
Yeah,
very rare.
I mean, so I'm not saying that it didn't happen in this case, but it just seems very unlikely.
Run the show. Run a show, Sean. I need a break.
He needs a break.
I need a break.
This is my horrible side.
They'd rather look at you than look at my ugly. Go ahead.
I'll sit back here with the boys.
It's like I thought there was another thing too, where like another paper boy got kidnapped. Oh, there was. That was in 1984. There was another paper boy named Eugene Martin, and he got abducted from the same area. This was in Des Moines, Iowa, if I didn't mention that. But so he disappeared also, delivering newspapers on the south side of Des Moines. So
it sucks.
Yeah, so it could be that somebody was targeting boys of that age in that particular area. You know what? And I gotta say this. Since I've been working on volume 2 of The Faceless Villain, which I swear to God, it will be out by the end of summer. It's like, it's so long, you guys. It's going to be like 600-700 pages.
Yay.
But I don't know if this is just because Iowa keeps better records, but holy shit, Iowa. It's like they have so many unsolved murders.
There ain't shit to do in Iowa, though.
I guess
there?
not.
No.
Maybe that's what it is.
Well,
because, like I said, I
crime,
don't know. Like, I keep getting the same states and the same cities, like, turning it up. And I was like, is this just because they keep better records? Or is it just because they have more of this horrible shit happening?
It could be a combination of both.
It could be a combination of things. Because it seems like every time I go through the cases, like, looking, I'm like, fuck, it's Iowa again. Again, it's Iowa.
Damn it.
And like, and
Iowa.
I think, and I know, and I was talking to one of our fans on YouTube about London, Ontario, which you'd think would be, it's Canada, they're chill and everything like that. But in the 60s, it was kind of like the serial killer capital where they had like 3 or 4 of the fuckers walking around.
What?
And then plus there was a bunch of other random murders.
The hell?
Yeah. There's a whole book about it I think it's called Murder City.
What?
And I've been reading it like online.
Holy shit.
It was a nexus of fucked up murders all happening.
It was.
So damn.
It was like-
They think that it was because they're like, well, the city it had been, it's a fairly large city. It was like 300,000 people at the time, but it had been a little bit isolated, but it had only just
Take the baby.
take the baby.
Take the baby.
But it had only just opened up because of the highway, and plus it's like right in between Detroit and Toronto. So they kind of think, well, maybe people are just like passing through there, like, but so many like little boys, little girls, women. It's like it's unbelievable. There were just so many. Like it tapered off later on, but it was like in the early to mid 60s. It was like crazy.
So like Juno with the aliens, isn't that?
Yeah.
Remember that movie with that Mila Jovovich is in? Jovovich with all the aliens that's supposed to be like what, the fifth sign, whatever the hell.
The sixth sign.
Sixth sign.
I didn't
see that.
Signs.
No, the way
Tom
that
Cruise?
was Mel Gibson was.
Oh,
Fourth kind.
I don't know
Fourth
one
kind.
asshole from another asshole. They're all assholes. Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise, all that fucking assholes.
Fourth kind, because
It
was like it's like a concentration of alien friggin' abductions allegedly. But anyway,
I wonder why. It's
'Cause,
weird, but that's why. But because of the whole thing with London, Ontario, I got super interested in like geographical murder profiling because that's a thing, which I didn't really know.
Well, I mean, we're from Brockton, we know that.
Yeah. But it's like now they have like all these mathematical formulas where it's like we can actually pinpoint, like if there's all these serial murders in the area, we can pinpoint like the most likely area where the dude lives and all this other kind of shit. It's it's like some mathematical equation. I can't remember what it's called. It's like named
Hate
after the guy that
science.
invented it. In science.
They can triangulate your ass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can. It's it's not like he lives right here in this house, but I mean, it's likely
In the general area of the roads
Right.
that they're taking, where they're probably buying fuel, where they're probably and all that stuff.
And it has to do. They have to take
formula
into
for it.
account where they took the people from, where the bodies were found, all this other kind of stuff. Now this one was 3 girls at once.
Wait, 3 girls at once.
Yeah. So that sounded dirty. I didn't mean it to sound dirty. 3 girls disappeared at once.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean it like that, you guys.
It did sound like that.
It did sound like that. Sorry. Yeah. That's what. Yeah. This is an adult show.
This is a drunk show.
Yeah, kind of. All right. So this is Julianne Mosley, Rachel.
I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the show a lot more now that I got Shana up there.
Yeah.
Well, now that you're not like a.
I don't have to run the show. I'm gonna let Shana. I'm gonna put.
I'm
let Shana run the show.
Oh well.
I'm gonna let
Sorry
Shana run the
guys.
ship.
Yeah, he's just gonna
I'm
lay
so
back.
shocked.
He's gonna lay back there.
It's a reality show.
Yeah,
It's a reality show.
We're sorry, people.
You don't know what's gonna happen. So reality shit's
happening
gonna
right
happen.
At some point, we need to find Baby Cookie, our kitten.
That we thought we lost earlier.
Oh my God, you guys! I gotta tell this story. So they came over like early. You guys came at like 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, right? So we've been here all day and watching movies and cooking and stuff. And so I'm thinking, I wonder where baby Cookie is. I haven't seen her all day. I mean,
because we're playing with the other cat. And
yeah,
chilling.
we're playing with the other cat, Beijing, and
we want to be equal opportunity cat time.
Right. So I'm just like, where's the baby? Because it's like usually she just, I mean, it's daytime, so she just lays in there and sleeps on the bed. We cannot find that little kitty anywhere.
Motherfucker.
And then Tom is like, maybe I let her out. And I don't remember, so I'm like, I don't remember you letting her out. But even then, it's like, so we go all around the house. I swear to God, we were like running around the house calling her like idiots.
Army. We were really recruiting hard for her, but she was just fucking off. We were convinced that she was out on her little fucking mission.
Yeah.
Probably playing with sandhill cranes and shit.
Oh, she does love the sandhill cranes. She's fascinated by them. Although if they kind of like put their wings up like that, she's like, oh, fuck that shit, okay. I'm out.
Yeah, we were all around looking for that little motherfucker.
Yeah, all around it. It's like, okay, I told Tom, I was like, look, I don't think she's outside, but it's like, where the fuck is she? I'm like, did she get locked in a cabinet?
Me and Eric outside, I'm like, we can postpone this. Like, we have to find that cat. Like, we can do this another time.
I know, I felt really bad, but I'm like, I have to know where that cat is.
Yeah.
I have to know where she is.
We wanted to know, too.
At all times. And do you know, so we looked through the house
everywhere.
like 80 times. Like,
Cupboards.
I looked at cabinets. I looked at the dryer.
I don't even know
everywhere.
this house. Yeah, I look behind the dryer. I don't even know this house.
Yeah, everywhere. Do you know where that little brat was? She was all curled up behind my computer monitor.
This is a baby Cookie right here.
In my look.
She's like a half a cup of kitty, so that's
She's like, I don't want to hear all this.
She's tiny. Where you going, baby?
Oh, ow, my knees.
She's running back to the room.
Maybe later you will be more compliant.
Man.
She won't be. No.
She's like, all that.
She's a rebel. She's like, I don't want to be on TV. Leave me alone, Daddy. So, yeah, okay. So, are we getting back to this now?
We have to keep the show rolling. Keep the show rolling.
All right.
Time is of the essence.
Oh, George Michael in his shorts are in the back.
Where?
We got 80s. We got 80s classics.
Oh, my
going.
goodness.
Feathered goodness right
We're
now.
watching 80s videos in the background, so I don't think you guys can see it, but Wham!
That was before the bathroom.
Wham
incident.
is on
People
right
still
now.
thought he was straight.
Did they?
Nobody thought he was.
They did.
Nobody thought he was. He has tiny, tiny little, like, bubblegum colored shorts on.
And double layered socks.
Yeah.
Fluorescent.
Who did that? Nobody. I do like that song, though, I admit.
Right.
All right, so what was I doing? Okay, so this was 3 girls, Julianne Mosley, Rachel Terlika, Lisa Renee Wilson. Now, this was a couple days before Christmas, 1974.
I hate when crimes happen right before the
Right,
fucking
and this
holidays
one is
or around
like,
the
this is
holidays.
kind of, this is kind of sucky. Because look, like Fort Worth, Texas, the 3 of them, now Rachel, she was 17, but she was already married, even though she was still in high school.
Texas.
Yeah. She had a car. Her friend Renee was 14. Now, Julianne Mosley
Was she married too?
No. I don't think so,
I'm
not
a
that
jerk.
they mentioned.
Sorry.
Yeah. But Julianne Mosley, she was 9, I think, and she lived across the street from Renee's
She better not have been
grandma.
married.
Yeah, no. I don't think so.
an
I was
asshole.
like surprised. I was like 17. Wow, that's young. Although my mom got married when she was 18, so.
Okay.
And she had me when she was 18
Well,
as well, because
But
that's how you do.
See, there you go.
So, Julianne is 9. She's they don't know her all that well, but she lives across the street from one of his relatives. They're like, hey, we're going to go to the Seminary South Shopping Center in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're going to do some Christmas shopping. And they never came back. The creepy thing was that they found their car. Like, evidently they went and they bought a bunch of stuff. They had put some clothes on layaway and stuff, and they had all these like Christmas presents and packages and stuff. And at some point they came back to the car and put the stuff in the car and locked the stuff in the car, and then they don't know where they went to. So yeah, they never found them. Yeah, so, and another creepy thing too is that one of the, I think the 14-year-old had a boyfriend, and she was all excited about that, and he was supposed to come with them, but then he didn't at the last minute because he was like, oh, my friend is sick, I have to go visit him. So, I mean, the girls were seen in the stores, but, a bunch of people saw them in the mall and stuff, so it must have been at some point after they went out to the car and put their stuff in the car. Now, the weird thing is that, like, a little while later, they were like, well, maybe they all just ran away, even though they didn't really know the 9-year-old all that well, and they didn't have any reason to run away, really. But then Rachel's, the oldest one, her husband, he got a letter in the mailbox, and it said Thomas A. Churlika, like it was addressed to him, but she called him Tommy, though. But then up in the, the return address, somebody had just written Rachel. You know what I mean? Like scrawled it. There was no city name like the postmark. It was just kind of blurry. So they weren't entirely sure where it had come from. It had been stamped. It had been stamped on the morning that it arrived. But the paper inside said, I know I'm going to catch it, but we just had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel. But he did not believe that was from her, and nobody else in the family did either. So somebody sent this shit to their house saying that the girls were like, oh yeah, we just ran away. We'll be back in a week.
They didn't damn run away. They were going doing Christmas shopping and everything for their friends and family. They didn't run away.
Yeah,
with the gifts in their car. Jerks.
I agree.
Well, no, exactly. It's like, why? Yeah, it's like, why would you go out and buy a bunch of Christmas presents, leave them in your car,
and then write a story?
Oh,
we bought presents, but we're out. Peace. We're like 9 later.
Well, and if they really were going to Houston, why didn't they take her car?
Jerks.
They just left it in the parking lot with a bunch of Christmas cards and then like wrote a letter.
Those
like, what
poor
the fuck,
girls,
man? Yeah. So yeah,
I hate you. Whoever took those fucking girls.
I
Jerks.
know all of these people. Fuck, man.
I hope you're not a viewer.
They could be. I know we're all in trouble. The creepy thing too is that and obviously these girls have never been found. But here's the thing, while they were looking for them, they found a bunch of other skeletal remains of some other people. Like in 1975, skeletal remains of a girl and a woman were found near San Antonio, but it wasn't them. And also this was in 1976. They were doing, the oil company was digging some stuff up in a bog, and they found a bunch of human bones too. But that was also not them.
Oy.
Yeah. And then there was 1981. They found skeletal remains of 3 girls, but not them. I don't know who those girls were.
Sounds like a Ted Bundy type motherfucker running around there doing
I kind of feel like maybe Ted Bundy killed a lot more people than people think. Because I was just writing about a case.
That's about that right time.
I was just writing about a case the other day that sounded very, very Ted Bundy-esque. Even though they asked him about it and he said, no, that wasn't me.
Well, Ted Bundy didn't admit, he never liked to admit having killed any underage girls, and they know he did kill some underage girls, so he had a tendency not to want to talk about underage girls.
Yeah.
And those ones sounded underage, so
yeah, well, 2 of them were.
At least 2 of them were, so
9 and 14.
He probably lied about it. That sounds like a Ted Bundy style crime. But,
I mean, that's got to be some, like, they must have
was
all
it in
just
the location? I forgot.
I'm kind of thinking they had to have been herded into a van or some shit like that, like in the parking lot of the mall.
Was that in Ted Bundy's territory?
It was Texas. It was Fort Worth, Texas.
I don't think Ted Bundy was in that area, was he? No.
He was mostly northeast, mostly, right? When he was from Vermont, and then I think he fucked around in California for a while too.
Yeah, California. Okay.
But
then probably wasn't him.
I'm pretty sure he's from Vermont, though, originally. Because I was writing about a murder the other day that sounded very much like his M.O., and that happened in Vermont. And they were saying, oh, well, Ted Bundy was definitely in Vermont at the time that this happened, so it's a possibility.
He killed an entire sorority by himself in one night. I mean, he had no problem taking multiple victims in one night.
Fuck, do you do something like that?
You just wait in a room and wait for him to come home one by one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm fascinated by this shit, but I can't.
Sick motherfucker.
I can't like wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Like, oh, somebody just like they put it in their mind that they're gonna go and slay this whole family. Yeah. And then they go and cook the fucking steak that they got in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Right. It's like, and that's the next top 10 list too. It's like like entire families that got wiped out for whatever reason. Yeah. This next one, we actually saw this one on Unsolved Mysteries the other day. And if you haven't seen our episode where we did a tribute to the Robert Stack Unsolved Mysteries, we did that too.
That's a hit. That's a hit show too. Everybody's loving it.
We used to watch that.
And that was I know, I love that show, and I still do. It's the newer ones are good, but you know, it's hard to replace Robert Stack. You can't.
Update.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trench coat.
Oh my god, they found them.
Oh my god. Yeah, you probably remember this one. This was Elizabeth Campbell.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, she was that girl that this happened in 1988, and she worked at a 7-Eleven. She went to her boyfriend's house. They had a fight, and then she was like, well, you know, drive me home, and he was like, no. So she goes and tries to call her brother from a payphone, like at a truck stop or some shit. Because she lived like 30 miles away from where the boyfriend lived. And then they never found her. So the weird thing, evidently her parents tried to report her missing like right away. But I guess in some states, if you're an adult, which she was, then you have to wait 72 hours.
That's so fucked up.
To file a missing person report, which to me seems, I don't know if Florida has that or not, but that seems a little
excessive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a thing where, yeah, they're a grown-up and like they can take off if they want to, but
Still.
if you know their habits and you know that they're not the type of person that would do that, then I kind of feel like they should take that a little bit more seriously. But yeah, so they had to wait 72 hours. But in the meantime, they went and looked for her by themselves. Now, the creepy thing about this, and they mentioned this a lot on the Unsolved Mysteries episode, was that there were a shit ton of sightings of her later on. And it was usually buying gas. And they usually said that, like a bunch of people said that she came in, or a girl that looked like her, came in with an Asian man. She was half Asian, and he was holding her by the wrist.
I remember this game.
She wasn't allowed to look up. Like if she looked up, he'd be like,
They
hey,
still haven't found this girl.
No, they still haven't. She's
Yeah.
still missing. So they don't know if those sightings are accurate, because see, that's the thing that kind of muddies the waters of a lot of these disappearance cases, is that, you know, somebody goes missing, they publicize it, which is good, but then you get like all these people calling in and going, oh, I saw her here, I saw her there. And a lot of times it's not them. And I don't think that people are trying to be assholes or trying to
There's a chance
disrupt the investigation. But sometimes they might see somebody that looks like them and they get all excited and they want to be, they want to help.
There's a chance that this girl got taken by that trucker. What was his name? Whips and Chains. The ones that would...
not the toy box killer.
No. He was
That's
a trucker
different
that would go around and he would put these girls into the back of his little sleeper cab.
Yes.
And torture them for days.
Yeah.
And then kill him. He got caught. What was his name?
I can't remember.
But anyway, that...
Asshole McFuckstick.
Yeah. Asshole McFuckstick.
It might as well be.
She's brilliant, man. We're going to have her back on. Asshole McFuckstick. I forgot all about that. You got it right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Everybody knows. Go ahead. You got this, Shana.
So yeah, this girl, she's been gone since 1988. I actually kind of tend to believe some of the sightings of her just because so many of them were independently reported. They were always at gas stations. And but although it seemed weird that if somebody had kidnapped her and didn't want anybody to see her, why do you go to a fucking why do you go to a gas station? Why do you bring her in with you?
Yeah.
Why don't you like leave her in the car? Although maybe he was afraid she would run away.
Troops.
I don't really know, but they never did find her either. So and that one was on. Oh, see, that was the ice maker. There it goes.
We have ice people.
The ice machine. All right, so that was that one. That was on Unsolved Mysteries. It was a season 1 or season 2, I think, episode that we saw that one on, and I wanted to feature that one just because that creeped me out so much.
I think that truck driver got her.
Yeah, maybe.
Because one of his victims, he took a victim and killed the boyfriend of the victim, and dumped that boyfriend off in the place real close to where that girl came up missing. So there was some physical evidence that links those two cases.
You gotta watch Truckers, man.
And yeah, that trucker, he was the one that took a picture of that girl, and she's got her hands up like that, and he shot her right before he took that picture, or no, he didn't shoot her, was threatening to shoot her. He ended up killing her with a damn wire, wired her up to a tree, and used that wire around her neck in the tree. It was bad. They said that he strangled her that her neck was just down to just a few inches with that.
Man.
Fuck, poor little 17-year-old runaway girl.
Damn.
He kept her for a little while too.
Like I said, Truckers, man, you gotta watch them.
Some hitch
put
shit.
down on all truckers.
Yeah, right. Not all.
Hashtag not all truckers.
Rutger Hauer, Hitcher, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just, it's.
Well, he's not a trucker.
We were like, remember we did that thing on that episode a while back where they were talking about, they had figured out like the most common jobs of serial killers, and trucker was in there. Well, because it's it's a job that's conducive to serial killing because you're always on the road. You can pick up hitchhikers or prostitutes.
It was statistical though, and I think those statistics came from data that was mostly from the 70s and 80s anyway.
Maybe
that's not happening now. That was
well, like I said, and I think we mentioned it on the show too.
I got defending damn truckers over here. They're all right.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they'll maybe do some business with an occasional lot lizard. But man's got to do what he's got to do. But they're not killing people. They're just regular guys.
Right. I'm just saying.
I grew up with a guy who's now a trucker. He was an asshole though. But
see. Never mind. I just negated my whole argument. Silly. He's so drunk, you guys. No, it's funny though.
Yeah, sorry.
It's funny though.
I'm having fun.
This next one was actually, this happened in British Columbia, Canada. This happened in 1991. The creepy thing about this, his name was Michael Wayne Dunahee. The weirdest thing about this was that he disappeared pretty much in sight of his parents. Like it was broad daylight. They were at this school ground where the mom was like on some kind of ladies football league or something like that. And they were having a game there that day. So she was playing in the game, the dad was in the stands, and the son was just he just went over there to play for a second, and boop, he totally disappeared. No sign of him, no nothing. So obviously this had to be an abduction because there's no way that he could have just wandered off and then they couldn't find him because they started looking for him pretty much.
Brady McRaperson got him.
Right away, yeah. So they were kind of saying that a couple people did say that they had seen a guy in his late 40s or early 50s kind of hanging around the playground, and he had a brown van, because of course they always have brown vans.
He had them
or
tube
white
socks
vans.
on. He had them tube socks with the 3 stripes pulled up around his knees. We understand. Blue running shoes.
Yeah,
none of the colors matched.
Please do not use this as actual leads in the case because he's just making stuff up.
He had that curly hair and them bifocals. We know what's up. Sandals.
He looked like Napoleon Dynamite. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Just say,
he had a white man's afro. I'm surprised he had a brown van and not a white van.
Yeah.
Because they always have white vans.
It used to be white, but now it's brown.
Now it's
just
brown
so
van.
dingy from his scum fuckery.
Yeah, I guess it must be. I guess so.
That's how it goes.
Now, the only lead they've had in this case happened in 2009. And they actually found this guy in Milwaukee named Vernon Seats. And he had a poster of Michael Dunahee in his house, which they thought was a little odd. He was 62 years old at the time. Now, he evidently had confessed to his psychiatrist that he had killed a child in 1959 when he was 12 years old, and that he knew of another one, but wouldn't tell them who it was.
It's kind of like, it's normal for a guy to know all these child murders. I remember we killed a kid when I was 11. Yeah, I knew another kid that we killed back when I was 10.
We didn't know any better. We was just growing up.
It's just something that happens to a young man. It's just something that happens to a kid, Yeah, child murder, it's all right.
And then the parents, my child couldn't do anything wrong. He was just playing, it was harmless.
Yeah, well, that guy, if that guy did it, I don't know, but he's dead now. The weird thing is that the Wikipedia page says he was later found dead by Milwaukee police, apparently of natural causes.
Apparently was it?
No further explanation.
He naturally fucking fell under the boots.
Which kind of makes me think like the cops are like, oh, natural causes.
You know.
Scumbag. I don't know how that could have happened.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, okay, this next one, I've seen this on like a lot of blogs. This one is pretty creepy. This guy is named Brandon Swanson. This actually is fairly recent. This happened in 2008. Now, he was a college student, and he'd been out at a party with his friends. They said he'd had a couple drinks, but he wasn't drunk or anything.
What?
Yeah. Now, so he's driving his car home because it was quite a long way, and he didn't wreck his car, but he just kind of ran off into a ditch. Like the tires were like kind of up off the road, and he couldn't probably like move the car.
He colleged his car.
He did, yeah.
What is he? That's a process?
It sounds pretty collegey.
Collegeization? Damn.
Yeah, so he's fine. Like, you know, the car is fine.
He was probably psyched too. He probably was like, yeah. I suck. I'm sorry.
So he calls his parents. Now he's talking to his parents on the phone for like 45 minutes. And he says, okay, well, I kind of fucked up the car. Can you guys come pick me up? And he said that, this happened in Minnesota, that he was near this city called Lind. And he was trying to tell them where he was. He's like, oh, I see this light from the city, and that's where I am. And so his parents drive out to where he thinks he is, and he's not there. But, you know, they're on the phone with him the whole time, and they said he sounded totally normal and everything like that. But then all of a sudden, 47 minutes into the cell phone call, he suddenly says, oh, shit. And then the call disconnects.
Man.
Damn.
And then they have no idea where he was. Now, the creepy thing is that when they, pinged his cell phone, to see where it was, he was actually 25 miles away from where he thought he was, which they couldn't figure out how that happened, how he could get so lost. They're like, like I said, he'd had a couple of drinks, but they're like, he wasn't drunk. And his parents had been talking to him on the phone for 45 minutes, and he said he didn't sound drunk, he wasn't confused or anything like that. So we don't know how he could have gotten so lost. They did eventually find his abandoned car, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't wrecked. There was nothing wrong with it. They are they searched with bloodhounds. Now the bloodhounds, they went out, I think it was like a 3-mile radius. They went into this, like a stream or a river. So they thought, oh, well, maybe he just fell in there and drowned. But then the dogs came out the other side and kept on going. Mm. And besides, they dragged that whole body of water. It wasn't a big body of water, I don't think. And they never found anything. So this guy, they have no idea what, they're like, the parents were still, his cell phone was still taking messages. So obviously he didn't fall in the river with the cell phone, and because then the cell phone would be broken. Mm. So it was still working. But just all of a sudden for him to just go, oh shit, and then they never hear from him again. And for him to be so far away from where he thought he was, that they thought that was just very strange. So this guy, like I said, this is a very, very popular case because of that phone call. I mean, somebody just oh shit. Now, I think most of the investigators are probably thinking, well, maybe he just in the dark, he stumbled and fell in the river, and and we just can't find him.
He got jacked by some crazy woods person.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's
Wisconsin, they ain't shit to do, like Iowa.
Yeah, this is Minnesota. I know.
Fuck.
I know. Seriously, if anybody's from Iowa, tell me what that is about.
What do you do? I'm sorry.
What is that about?
We're from cities.
Why am I finding?
I mean, not to diss the country, but
yeah. Why am I finding so many unsolved murders in Iowa? I really need that explained to me.
Don't do the crimes.
They either keep really good records, or they got a lot of fucking pervs up there.
That's what I'm thinking. It might just be because it's some states don't really keep a huge tally, a huge website, but New Hampshire does, Iowa does. They have
they probably just have really good law enforcement up there.
Yeah,
keeping track of everything. They're not overwhelmed. some of the other places are pretty overwhelmed.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe the other places have so many that they're just like, fuck it, we can't even keep track anymore.
They can't fucking promote it all.
Like, if, you know, I don't know. But, you know, maybe in Iowa they're like, well, it doesn't happen
because
that often.
Iowa's pretty damn boring. Come on.
Yeah, but there a lot. Well, the creepy thing about Iowa is that a lot of the murders seem to be just random, motiveless. Like, hey, there was just a woman at home one day and some guy came in and stabbed her 40 times and left.
Extreme boredom crimes.
Yeah, it's like, it's not raped, not robbed, not nothing. They just like walk in. I guess it's like, well, I didn't have anything better to do.
Somebody today.
Yeah.
Sounds real.
I've never been that bored. Yeah.
No, I hope never to be.
But yeah.
Even if I did get bored.
They go stir crazy and then they knock a motherfucker off.
I guess so. Yeah. That's what that. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Don't do it. Yeah. If anyone's thinking about it out there, don't get that bored. Just watch Netflix.
I'll make another drink if anybody wants one.
I haven't finished mine yet.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I got to pour some Keela.
That's a beautiful bottle of Keela.
I have abolished the tea.
That
is Keela.
Isn't that like it? I always thought that was such a nice bottle.
It is pretty.
That's the Sam's store brand.
Ooh, the blue is like your nail polish, Jenny.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Look, it looks pretty on the video.
It does. It matches my bangs, kind of. Parts of my bangs.
Yeah.
My natural
It's a whole blue
color.
theme we have.
My hair is real, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You can do this to your dreads too. This is real. I mean, extensions are fine and everything, but you can do this to your fucking hair. See, this actually is my hair. He fucking tried to cheer me up one day, and he fucking cut this hair off and put it on her, and I was dying laughing. So. But yeah. Oh, anyway.
We just had to, yeah. He's over there filling up his giant,
I'm looking for the other.
his jartichoke, as you call it.
Jartichoke.
It's in the door, right?
It's in the door.
Oh, is this one? No, it's not unopened.
Oh, I got a whole stockpile of grenadine. That's just one of the mini grenadines.
He's got grenadine all over this place.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was behind the almond milk. Yeah. We're all just like watching him make a drink, and like all the people are like watching this video going.
There's a show going on.
We're watching him and no one's watching anything. Okay, now this one, I have weird feelings about this. This actually kind of seems like someone that staged it, but I don't know.
Grapefruit Keela.
Grapefruit Keela.
Grapefruit with Keela.
It looks like there's nothing
and
in
some
it.
grenadine. No, it's all right. It's all good.
Oh,
You let Tom handle this. See?
I always let Tom handle things.
What now?
He always lets Tom handle
I'm
things.
handling what now?
See?
What happened?
He handled it. You guys all saw that. All right. I see the kitty over there. All right. This one happened in 1961 in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Where we're from.
Yeah.
We're math holes, he and I. Brockton, motherfucker.
It's so fucking hilarious.
All right. This woman's name is Joan Risch. This happened in October 24th, 1961. Now, her husband got up and left the house. He was going to Logan Airport. He was going to New York City for a business trip.
Takes like 15 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, it's right there. Now, right after he left, Joan gets up. She feeds the kids. She takes her kid across the street to play with the neighbor kids. And, she just does normal shit. She goes to the dentist. She goes to the department store, buys some stuff.
No, she goes to the department store.
The departments. I said it wrong. Yeah, she goes to the dry cleaner, nothing. And nobody notices anything out of the ordinary. So she comes home with the kids. She makes them lunch. She puts one of the kids down for a nap. And then one of the neighbors brings the other kid over. And then she takes both kids over to the neighbor's house. And it was like, okay, well, hang on, just watch them for a little while.
People used to do that, motherfuckers.
Yeah, it was funny where you just kind of
we could play outside too.
Yeah. And we just walked to the store. Everything was
drank
fine.
out of the tap. Oh.
I still do that.
Hey.
You stole your parents' booze.
I was Cape Verdean. We could have wine and
my parents
beer.
didn't have any booze. I feel I got.
You still, you used to be Cape Verdean.
I still am Cape Verdean. When I'm drinking, I was, but no. Anyway. No.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So it's like 2 p.m. The neighbor looks out the window and sees Joan, and it says she looks like she has a trench coat over her clothing, and she's like walking up her driveway, like kind of quickly, like, and it seemed kind of suspicious. And then she looked like she was carrying something. Now, an hour later, somebody sees like a strange car that they didn't recognize in the neighborhood, like right around that woman's house. Then she says that she goes back over to drop the kids off. Then one of the little girls comes back over and she says, "Mommy is not in the house and the kitchen is covered in red paint."
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and the baby was like in the room and he was crying because he still had a diaper and it was full and, there was nobody there, so to change it.
Styron was hanging low.
Damn. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So in the kitchen, they find a few bloody smears on the walls, an overturned table, and the wall-mounted telephone has been ripped loose and thrown into the wastebasket. So at first, this was kind of weird. Like at first they didn't necessarily think, oh, she's been murdered. They thought she'd committed suicide for whatever reason. And so they start looking for her body and they don't find her. So they basically are like, okay, well, they call the cops. They call around all the hospitals. They're like, maybe she was in an accident. And the creepy thing too is that a bunch of people later saw her and they said it looked like that she looked kind of disheveled, like she had put on like a cloth coat. And she looked like she was carrying something, and she was like walking down the side of the road. One person said that she had blood coming down down of her legs. It
sounds like Main Street when I was a little kid. Sounds like my neighborhood.
Yeah. But yeah, so they said that she wouldn't have had all that much money left. But
also sounds like my neighborhood.
Yeah, that sounds like me now. But they said that the amount of blood they found, they're like, it was alarming, but it wasn't enough blood that it would have been like, that she got stabbed to death or anything like that. So the weird thing, they see her walking down the street. She looks all kind of fucked up. A couple of people saw her, like she had a little handkerchief like tied over her head and stuff. And they said there was kind of blood. Most of it was in the kitchen, but then there were like drops of it, like a couple of them going up the stairs. There was one in the windowsill in the kid's room. There was like little smears of blood like on the outside of her car, which was still in the driveway. And they said that there were no bloody footprints though, which they thought was kind of odd. They're like, there was a couple of fingerprints, but no, but they didn't know if they were her fingerprints because she wasn't there like to get fingerprints. She had never been fingerprinted before. So they didn't know. So they said, it's type O blood. They said, yeah, she had type O blood, but so do half of the people in America. So, there was no way they could figure that out. Now, one thing that kind of makes people think that perhaps she staged a disappearance was that for whatever reason, I think because of a tip or something, they checked her library records. And she had checked out a bunch of books over the summer, mostly true crime type of books, which, nothing wrong with that. But some of the books she had checked out kind of described someone that faked their own death or faked their own disappearance.
How to dip out without anyone knowing.
And then leaving like blood behind in the kitchen.
Did she kill an animal or some shit? But then you said it was type O, so it must have been a person.
Yeah, it was
probably
human
bled
blood.
herself out.
So maybe, so I'm thinking maybe she
gave herself a whack ass cut and was trying to be like,
I guess
I was attacked.
Either that or
where did I go? And she started her life over.
It's a whole procedure, huh?
Well, yeah, like I said, it seems like a lot of trouble, though. I'm just saying, it's like if you just want to leave your life, just leave.
Some people, though,
It's like, why do you have to make a big drama about it?
They're going to make a little dramatic paper cut and be like, psst, psst, on the kitchen in the wall and be like, oh no, I was probably abducted. And then they went off to their own little new shit life.
Shana, let me ask you a question.
X.
If a person wants to disappear, okay, why would a person want to go to such lengths to make it look like it was foul play?
Because it makes a great story later.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, maybe they're keeping up with it later on.
You know, they want to be on. They want Stack to talk about.
They want a stack. They want a stack attack.
They want a stack attack.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Stack attack.
You never know.
Okay.
Well, and I was thinking too that another thing that might have happened was that maybe she got wounded accidentally, and then got disoriented.
Why was she scurrying down the driveway though, with her her babushka in her jacket?
That does seem very odd.
She fucked up, and she tried to be slick, and then she was just, oh shit, I'm not slick, but I'm still gonna pretend, and then it just didn't work out well.
Okay.
Yeah, like totally weird. I mean, the one thing that does. I don't know, man, but that's the thing. Now her husband is dead now, and he did not like to talk about it, but he held out hope that she was still alive. I mean, he thought that probably she had. I'm thinking because of the books and stuff, and because one of the books she checked out had almost an exact same, almost that same scenario where it's like this woman was like, I'm gonna get out of here, and I'm just gonna leave some blood, so it looks Mm-hmm. I mean, like
she's
I said,
gone.
Yeah,
she's living a new little shit life. She's
out. Change her name and all kinds of
shit.
She's
out.
Yeah.
She thought she was gonna be all, ooh, it's gonna make the papers watch, and once I get into my new location, I'm gonna read myself. I'm all about my dad. Look at me, all dead. Ooh, I'm not dead. I'm like, I don't know, whatever.
I mean, one reason to fake your death, I would think.
Is you have a current shit life and then you want to move, or some people do have a shit life and they do have to leave. Don't get me wrong. Some people have a shit life and need to go.
Yeah.
But some people just are stupid and they want to be like, someone catching me in the kitchen. I just by chance checked out some books at the freaking library on how to dip. She's out of there.
I was kind of thinking if you had what was that movie with Julia Roberts in it, Sleeping with the Enemy? Mm-hmm. Where she faked her death, and she was like, I went in the ocean, but she had and she had to change her name, and she's like, that in that situation, okay. Yes. So I don't know if that kind of shit was going on in her life.
Maybe her husband was an ass bag. We never know.
Right, that's what I mean. It's like so you don't know. Maybe it was something. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't just. Maybe it wasn't just kind of a thing where I just want to get out of here. Yeah. Maybe it was like I need to change my name and have a different identity and shit like that. So
and because the husband's not going to come out and be like, well, I was a shithead, and so maybe she did leave me because I'm an ass, and
they never. I hope she's alive.
No, he's like going to be like, oh, no.
They never do say that.
Maybe her husband was an asshole. Oh. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm horrible.
Brother, sir, I have to apologize.
He died in 2009.
Okay, then fuck you, sir. You're probably an
I'm horrible.
This is the worst.
I'm never going to be invited back.
I hope none of these people's
relatives... You're knocking it out of the park, Shauna. You're knocking it out of the damn park.
People's relatives are watching this show.
I'm so sorry.
You're knocking it out of the park. Knocking it out of the park. Like, go to the girls handle this shit.
I apologize to any of these people's relatives that are watching.
Can't understand it. Can't understand it. Can't understand that shit. I can't understand that shit. Can you? I can't understand it.
This is the Springfield 3. Suzanne Streeter, Stacey McCall, and Cheryl Levitt. Now, this happened in 1992. Susie Streeter was 19. Her friend Stacey McCall was 18. They had just graduated from Kickapoo High School.
Listen.
Wait a minute, is that like shit kicker?
It is.
Does that mean shit kicker?
does. I mean,
That's
listen,
Shit Kicker High
if for
School.
real, this is probably an Indian name, but come on, use discretion, high schools.
Yeah, come on.
Don't call your high school kickapoo.
Yeah, that means shit kicker.
No.
Now I'm wondering what their sports team is named.
The dung heaps.
Probably. Get on that, Kickapoo High School. You need to change your name to that.
Oh, man. The dung beetle is the mascot.
Yeah, that would be cool, though. Like,
I love dung beetle.
Yeah, if you're gonna name your school that, just go whole hog, man.
Do it.
Seriously.
Look at her. She's so funny.
All right. So, where was I? All right. So Susie and Stacy, 18 and 19, like I said, they're kind of going around different graduation parties. Yeah, kick and poo, as you do.
With the shit kicker.
And yeah.
Man, we're getting too drunk to do these damn shows.
Okay, so Susie and Stacy, they're going around to different parties and stuff like that. And then they go to Susie's house, where Susie's mother, Cheryl, also lives. Now, Cheryl is 47 years old, a cosmetologist. Now, at some point during the night, all three women disappeared.
Yo.
Cars were still in the driveway. Most of their stuff was still there. All their purses and clothes and things like that.
That's mad unlikely.
Yeah.
That's bad news.
Right. So, the friends come over the next day and they're all gone. Because they were supposed to go to a water park with their other friends. So she came over and no one was there. So the weird thing, the friend goes in because the door wasn't locked, and there's really no sign that anything bad happened, other than the house being unlocked, other than the car being there. All of their stuff is there. Now, while the friend, whose name is Janelle, and the boyfriend are at the house being like, where the hell did these three women go? The phone rang, and Janelle answered it, and the guy on the other end of the phone, it was an obscene phone call.
Jerk.
So, yeah, she was just like, okay, so she just hung up and left. They weren't really thinking about it. So then Stacy's mother comes over to the house, and, the door of the house is unlocked, so she goes in. Now, she sees that her daughter, who was Stacy, that her underwear and t-shirt were gone, but the rest of her clothes that she'd had on was there. They said that the girls had come home and taken their makeup off because it looked like, there was stuff in the bathroom that looked like they had taken their makeup off. So they'd probably taken their makeup off and gone to bed, and then for some reason they just disappeared. The TV was on, there was a voicemail on the machine, but she accidentally deleted it while she was trying to listen to it. It took about 16 hours, and then finally the parents, Stacy's parents, reported Stacy missing. And so, like I said, this 47-year-old woman and two teenage girls, both gone. So, but, no sign of anything else weird. Now, the only suspects they had in this case was Cheryl, who was the mother that disappeared, who was 47. She also had a son named Bart, and he had evidently gotten into an argument with her and the sister because he was an alcoholic, and I guess they were calling him out on it, so he kind of got all upset about it. But he had an alibi. They also suspected maybe it was Susie's ex-boyfriend had done something to them. He had a rap sheet for vandalizing stuff and crap like that, stealing corpses' gold teeth.
Wait a minute, hold on.
And selling them.
Shit.
Because I guess people want to buy them. I don't know.
What
Corpses,
the
gold teeth.
hell? Nice pastime.
Yeah, I
dig up some dead
suppose.
people, steal their teeth.
Fuck is this, the 1800s?
Is it even worth it to dig up a dead body to get a couple of gold teeth?
Apparently for some people it is.
Man, how could that be worth it?
Maybe it was in Iowa and they didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah, what you get for a tooth
It
and how
wasn't
much
right.
work is that?
So there was this other guy, though. His name was Robert Craig Cox. He was an Army Ranger. He had been arrested and convicted in Florida for another murder, but it was later overruled because they said, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. We shouldn't have convicted him. So he got out.
Oh, they said because it was Florida, it was all right.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's
you're
all
still
right.
allowed
Well,
to
yeah,
murder
it's all
people
right.
here. It's fine.
Right.
You're not, though. You're really not. Please don't. So this guy in 1985 was convicted of 2 separate abduction attempts, and he eventually ended up serving 9 years in prison. But then later, he got out. He was paroled, and he actually was paroled in 1992 and went to live with his parents, who lived in Springfield, Missouri, which is where these 3 women disappeared from. So he was right there, right place, right time. So
this motherfucker did it.
Right. So maybe, but
he did it.
Yeah. And there was also a connection because they found out later that this guy had worked with Stacy's dad, like, because Stacy's dad owned a car lot, and so this guy had worked there, so he knew him. So it wasn't like it was just like a stranger.
Oh.
And really, his only alibi for the time of the crime was from his girlfriend, and you know how that goes, just like.
No, it was with me.
Yeah, he was with me the whole time, right? Yeah. So. He actually was kind of a douche, like when they put him in jail for something else.
Well, I mean,
he kept telling the police, he's like, oh, I know where they are, they're dead, and I know where they were buried, and all this other kind of stuff. But they didn't know how seriously to take him because he was kind of one of those attention seeker. I confess into all this and that and the other. So, this case is pretty much, other than that guy, they have no other suspects, no idea who took these 3 women, how it happened, because, no sign of a struggle, no blood, no nothing.
How are you going to kidnap people and get 9 years in jail? Like, you shouldn't be allowed out. Why the hell are you amongst people? You kidnap people and you get another fucking chance? No. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
You should be pickaxing with a dull ass pick. You should be digging a hole for the rest of your fucking life. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, I agree. So, so the 3 women have now been declared illegally dead as of 1997. But they never knew what happened to them.
I know what happened.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know probably what happened. Now, this one, I think this is the 10th one, I think. This one is Dennis Martin, and he was 6 years old. This happened in the Great Smoky Mountains. In 1969, it was Father's Day weekend.
Oh, man.
And they were, him and his family were all out on a camping trip. And it was a trip they took every year. They went hiking in the mountains and stuff. So evidently they stopped in this meadow that, it was kind of a popular place where people that camped there would go. It's like on the Appalachian Trail. And all the grown-ups were sitting out on the grass, like having a picnic or whatever, talking. And Dennis Martin... he also had a brother, and there were 2 other boys that were with them on the trip. And they were like, oh, we're going to play a joke on our parents. We're going to, split up. We're going to go out in the woods, and then we're going to jump out from behind the trees, like in all different directions, right? They were 6. So so 3 of the boys go one way, Dennis goes the other way, and they all like hide behind the trees. And so the 3 boys, they do what they're supposed to do, and they jumped out, but then Dennis didn't jump out. Oh. So then they're like, well, maybe he just didn't hear us saying, hey, jump out, you know what I mean? But they go over there and look, and he's gone.
Oh.
And it was like it was right there. So obviously, the family kind of goes out in all directions, and they're looking for him. They find... pretty much nothing. There's absolutely nothing. No sign that an animal got him, no sign that a person got him, no nothing. The weird thing, a few hours after he vanished, there was another family that had been hiking about 6 miles from where this original family was, and they said that they thought they had heard a kid screaming. So, and also they thought they saw something moving, like in the bushes, and something was, and then somebody said they thought they saw a man that had like a bag over his shoulder that looked like there was something in it. So they don't know if it was like the kid, like he had put the kid in a bag or something like that, or that he had thrown the kid over his shoulder. But one witness said that they saw something like that, but they just kind of saw it out of the corner of their eye. So... yeah, so they never ever found any trace of this kid either.
Did they question the family that said they saw a little boy getting thrown into a sack in the woods by some guy?
Yeah. I'm wondering. Well, like I said, I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting drunk. Yeah, probably. Maybe they didn't do anything. I don't know. They didn't do anything. But yeah, so they had the whole 9 yards, bloodhounds, helicopters, everything. Weeks and weeks go by. They're like, they found a couple weeks after he disappeared, they found some little kid footprints, and then they found a pair of boys' underwear near where he disappeared. But the kid's mother said that they weren't his. Although, I don't know if they were or not, but she did not think they were. So,
man, that sucks.
I think it was the ice maker, actually.
That sucks though. This little kid's 6, man. That's
6 years old, and it's just like that's so creepy though. And
they're playing a game, and then
just out with your friends, and then like a minute later, they're like totally gone. So they don't know if a person got him or animal got him. This case is kind of well known, and I think that it's kind of one blog I saw. They kind of went off on this whole you get taken by aliens or something. I don't know. I was like reading some of it. I was just like, really? I'm not. So I didn't think he got kidnapped by aliens, but I'm just saying there are a couple blogs out there that are kind of going into that conspiracy theory area where they're just be like, well, they must have been, he must have been taken by, because we can't find it. Has to be aliens, because obviously that's the only explanation.
That's the only other reasonable thing,
right?
Jenny, come on.
Okay,
your cat was taken by aliens briefly and then deposited behind the screen of your computer. That's what it was. That's why we couldn't find it for so long.
That explains a lot.
Jenny.
It's true. It wouldn't surprise me. For a while I thought she had been kidnapped by aliens. I'm like, where could she possibly be?
I thought she jumped that back fence.
I don't think she can reach that. She couldn't.
No, there's a hole. That. Yeah, there's a hole underneath it. That's what I meant by jump. She went underneath that back.
She knows better than.
It's all right.
Well,
it's good to go. We found her.
We found her. It's fine. Don't panic. Yeah. We wanted to get her back on the show, but she was just kind of like, I don't want to do it.
No, she's like, nope, fuck me, no.
All right, so I think that's that was our 10 creepy disappearances. How fucking long did that take? Holy crap! Forever. For reasons,
we're warmed up now, and of course, you know what I mean.
We're liquored up now,
and we already watched James Bond. They hadn't seen Casino Royale, and I informed them. I said, I'm breaking up with Crussell, and I'm breaking up with Crussell. I think I'm gonna hang out with the Craig.
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen Bond so many times that I think my man crush has transferred from the Crussell to the Craig. It's a momentous occasion.
Crussell's gonna be mad at you.
It's gonna be all right.
We'll see what happens.
He'll get over it.
It's a testosterone factor. I can't resist that shit. It's just too fucking manly.
It's just a degree of the Crussell sphere. These things happen.
Damn, it's okay.
I am totally going to. If you guys have seen Casino Royale, the very famous shot of Daniel Craig coming out of the ocean with his little bathing suit on. So I want to recreate that. I want to make Tom come out of the ocean with a tiny Speedo on.
I don't have those abs, though. I don't have those abs. Not yet.
But still, think how funny this would be.
Oh,
and this gives me an opportunity. So we're talking about Casino Royale, and I'm so mad that I forgot to mention this on our review of it. Evidently, and this might have been in the UK. Like, I know we have some UK listeners, and maybe you can tell me if it was the UK, if it was another country. I just assumed it was the UK. But they actually sold for a time when Casino Royale came out, like a popsicle that was in the shape of Daniel Craig coming out of the ocean from that scene.
Please let this be true.
I know. It's on the Wikipedia page. Why would someone make that up?
People are assholes.
I know. It's like that is so. I was like, wow, that's very specific.
Yeah.
I wonder who decided to do that, like the marketing plan. It's like, yeah, we'll have.
Well, Craig came out of the water like that with those abs, and they had a lot of people, I guess, male and female, wanted to suck that. So they made it.
So that's where. Well, yeah.
I'm just telling you the truth. That's that.
Yeah. A popsicle, though, odd. Maybe they also made kind of like a chocolate bunny type of thing, so you could, if you were into that kind of stuff too. But yeah, please tell me if that's true. I don't think they ever sold it over here. I never saw one. Not like I was.
Yeah, Jenny wants one.
Yeah.
So.
Don't send me one. It'll be melted by the time it gets here. Which, speaking of which, like, you might have to make me another one in a minute.
I'm gonna make you one. Don't worry about it. I got this shit under control.
I'm just, I'm at water now because I'm like on my fifth.
As soon as this shit starts rolling, I'm gonna hand it back on over to Shana again because Shana did such a good did such a good job.
Like, eventually,
she's our guest host for tonight. You know what I mean? And it allows me to sham. I can just kind of sit back and fucking sit over there and drink it like yeah. That's how it was.
Yeah.
We're gonna do another segment right now before we probably shut this down because we had this fucking unrealistic fantasy that we would be able to do 10 lists of 10 of the fucking of the most mysterious
10
things.
Is 100, right?
We did one list of 10 and realized that was nearly 2 hours. So we would
because we just went on and on.
Yeah, we'd have a 20-hour fucking show.
Which that's gonna like take me a very long time to upload.
So instead of having the magic number 100, we're gonna have the magic number 20. Okay. We're probably have 2 lists of 10 because we were motor mouthing our way through it and it was pretty good. We're warmed up now. Great. We'll probably put this at the very beginning because the first segment we did, the introduction, it didn't hit on all notes. If it wasn't firing on all cylinders.
We sucked.
Well, we have to get drunker and drunker and various other things.
Just in case, I have to introduce. Did I introduce you guys? This is
yes.
Shana. Okay.
You did.
Hey, it's Eric.
Shana and Eric Murphy. They're friends of ours.
We're from Brockton, Mass.
From Brockton, Massachusetts.
We live down here now, but we're from Brockton, Mass. People.
Yeah, and
assholes.
And of course, I lived in the Cambridge, Somerville area for about 4 or 5 years, so I know Brockton well. So when I met them down here in Florida, it was like, I know you guys. I know what's up. Okay, I liked Boston though.
Boston's.
Yeah, I don't miss them damn college
Boston's
students
shit.
though. I don't miss them that.
I don't blame you for not missing them.
Damn college
I don't miss the damn snow either, man.
Yeah, true.
Fuck the snow. Fuck the cold.
I know.
I would rather swelter.
Yeah.
Just drink some water and go in the fucking central air, people.
Would you?
Okay, you guys. Today you're going to see the nerve center of 13 o'clock, where the magic happens. Let's check it out. Wow. This is Jenny's desk, where she sits every single day for 12 to 14 hours, working on various things. There's her water. There's her aspirin. See, I got all the pictures up here. Got my Domo, got my Mac. There's the microphone that we use to record the show most of the time. There's my MST print there. There's another MST print there. I'm a fan, in case you didn't know. Here's my extensive library. This is where I get some of the ideas for the show. And these are all my little Halloween toys that our cats like to play with and carry around the house. There's my voodoo doll. And these are just some various, again, it's all my MST episodes. There's all of Tom's exciting Japanese robots. He has more of them in a second, I will show you. There's, shoes, don't show. This is my Bauhaus poster. I don't know how well you can see that. It's kind of dark up there, but there's a bunch of Tom's toys. There's a poster of me from Memento Mori. More Bauhaus stuff. Yeah, so for the 100th episode, we just thought you'd like to see where we sit when we're drinking and recording. And here it is. Thank you very much.
What the fuck? How's this shit happen? Yay, what's up? Hey, what you doing? Okay.
And it's like, well, and it's thing too, because we, like I said, when we initially conceived of doing the 10 lists, we were going to do half true crime and half paranormal, but then I only had true crime stuff. So I'm like, now we're like talking about creepy disappearances and horrible murders and stuff. And then we're just kind of like, we don't mean to joke about it, but it's not, you know what I mean? It's just, but that's how it happens.
Well, a lot of that stuff happened a long time ago too, so you know.
Still, I'm horrible.
Yeah,
you'll see what we mean.
But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start off with this segment here.
Yeah, this segment here is probably even worse than the other one because these are 10 massacres of entire families.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I'm specifically not, because we already did a show on Hinterkaifeck Farm, the very famous mass murder. And there, you know, I did like the Benny Evangelist family and stuff. So I'm trying to do stuff that we haven't done on the show before. So these ones are ones that have not been done on the show before. Although I should say that 4 or 5 of these cases are going to be in my new book when it comes out.
Okay.
So if you're interested in these cases, they will be in the Faceless Villain Volume 2. When that comes
and that's
out
not
before the end
far.
of the
That's
summer.
not far from being finished. Couple months probably, huh?
Yeah, well, like I said,
We'll see.
initially I was saying, beginning of summer, but it's since I've been adding so much stuff to it.
Yeah, this is a huge book, people.
And if you don't have the first one, oh my God, get that shit. It's compelling as hell. It's
you
not
like
all
that?
like, oh, bro. You won't be able to tear away from it. It rules.
Yeah,
I'm not a book person, and I'm not a bullshit person, so that shit was the shit. It's cases that you never heard before, and it's just ooh.
Take it from Brockton. That shit was the shit. That shit was the shit.
Well, yeah.
That's what we're gonna have. You know, on the back side, the comments in the books for like Siskel and Ebert. You know, the best. This shit is the shit.
Well, you can't really get much higher praise than that.
Can't get praise,
You know, I'm just saying. All right, so yeah, this is massacres of entire families. These are not in any particular order. I didn't rank them or anything like that. This first case, okay, this is a creepy case, and
put your face in.
Okay, well, I'm trying to not block you.
No, you can block me. You can block me. You're talking.
Okay.
When you're talking, you block me.
Blocky talkie.
Blocky talkie.
That's how that shit goes. This one, I actually told you about this one while we were walking. I don't know if you remember. This happened in 1962. This is the Mapps family. And I say the entire family, even though it was kind of only the wife and the kid, but I say the whole family because they're not entirely sure what happened to the dad, because he has never been found. So this is January 1962. The Mapps family consists of, the dad is Edward, he's 39, he's an artist. He has a wife named Christine, she's 22, and they have a 4-month-old daughter named Julie Louise. Now, they're at their neighbor's house on this evening. They're having some apple pie, hanging out. About 9 o'clock, they're like, okay, we got to go home and put the baby to sleep. 2 hours later, there's a call to the firefighters. And the firefighters come to the house, and it's burning down, pretty much. So all the windows are closed, so the police bust in there. Now, they find Christine Mapps dead, but not from fire. Her skull was fractured. She was actually, they say they found her in the kitchen or in the room off the kitchen. It looked like she'd been changing the baby's diaper and somebody had come up behind her and hit her in the head. She was like holding like a cloth diaper like up to her head, like trying to, keep the blood from coming or something like that. So, so they find her in the kitchen, and then they find the baby in the crib, pretty much already dead from smoke inhalation.
Terrible.
Yeah. So they took them both away. The baby was actually dead at the scene. Christine passed away a couple hours later. Now, the first thing they think of is, well, this had to be the husband, Edward Mapps, because he's gone. Like, he's not in the house anywhere. And the house didn't burn down entirely, but it looked like there was no accelerants in the house, but it looked like somebody had, like, set little fires, like all like piles of paper and clothes and stuff, but all the windows were shut too. So they said the fire didn't get enough oxygen to really get that big. But they said that since there was no accelerants, it didn't look like somebody had like planned to burn the house down. It looked like it just kind of happened. So initially they think, okay, well, the husband he killed them and then tried to set the house on fire and then took off. The gas stove was on and with the door open and stuff. Now, there were a couple other weird clues at the scene that they never really figured out what they were or what they had to do with anything. They said near Christine's body, they found a plate that had animal blood on it and a woman's ice skate that was covered with animal fur. What? Now, they didn't have any pets, so they couldn't figure out where this blood or this fur came from, but it definitely was animal blood and it was definitely animal fur. I don't think they ever found the other ice skate either. They also found a letter at the crime scene, and it appeared to be a letter that Christine had written to the baby, who was named Julie Louise. She's 4 months old. The letter says, "Dear Julie Louise, we are still alive, but the day goes badly. I still feel the squirrel rage fantasy and baseless."
Squirrel rage fantasy?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Edward says you are the base, but that is unfair to you, although much of my work concerns you. So they have no idea what that means.
Ugh.
Yeah, creepy. Now, another thing, so the husband, they're like, notably, all his shit was still in the house. His wallet, all his personal papers. Both the family's cars were still there. No one had driven them away. He was a sculptor. Someone had smashed all of his sculptures, which I don't know why he would have done that. They said there was really no way that he could have gotten away that quickly at that time of night. There were no cabs, there were no buses or anything. He didn't take any of the cars. Now, 2 days later, a friend of the family, around 8 a.m., they said that somebody called them and they were sure that it was Edward, the dad. And according to this person, Edward says, "When you see Bob, I want you to tell him that I forgive him." Now, Bob was probably Christine's father, whose name was Robert Walbach. Now, it came out later on, the friend told Edward, he's like, well, you need to turn yourself in, they think you did it. And evidently this person, if it was Edward, said, "I can't do that, I have too many things to do." He then said, "Give my love to Julia," which their daughter's name was Julie, but Christine's mother was also named Julia, so I'm not really sure who he was referring to. And they never established whether that was actually Edward Mapps or not. The friend of the family seemed to think it was, but, it was his word, they weren't really entirely sure. So they pretty much think that, well, it's him and he just took off, but the more you learn about Christine's dad, the more it maybe sounds like that guy should have been investigated. Because Robert Walbach, known as Bob, he hated Edward Mapps from the very beginning, like before they even got married. And evidently he thought that Edward was a bum. He's like, oh, he's an artist, he doesn't work, he doesn't have any money, he just wants to sponge off us and all this other kind of shit. And he had actually threatened to kill him on one occasion and admitted as much. And he had popped him in the face and shit like that. Now it turned out that after Edward disappeared, they found out that he actually had a big trust fund that his father had given him. So he wasn't actually sponging off anybody. He had money. It's just that he didn't have to work because he had trust fund from his family. And pretty much everybody else that knew him and knew that family were like, Edward would never hurt his family. It's like he was a nice guy. Like he had some kind of mental problems after he came back from World War II. He had served in World War II. But they're not violent or anything like that. So they really didn't think that it was him. Now, so as I said, Robert Walbach, who's Christine's father, they had just had altercations. Him and Edward had had altercations all the time. There had been fights. He actually admitted that he had threatened to kill him. Christine's mother also said that he had threatened to kill her and started a rumor that Edward and her were having an affair, which she denied. So, and there was this other stuff about, him kicking them out of an apartment and all this other kind of shit. And something that came up, because at first they thought, oh, well, it couldn't have been Robert Walbach because he was on a plane at the same time that the murder took place. Except they found out, he was like, oh yeah, I flew on Alaska Airlines to New York City from Miami at this particular time, Alaska Airlines comes out and says, we didn't have a flight from New York City to Miami that day. So you lied. And also, he did actually get to New York City later that day, but he said, I checked into the hotel at like 3 a.m. or something. And the people who worked in the hotel in New York City were like, nah, more like 8 a.m. So, see, because back then, this was 1962 or whatever, you didn't really have to show, you could just walk into an airport and like buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So, no one looked at any ID. They couldn't really prove whether he was on a plane, whether it was that airline, whether it was a different airline. But he wasn't on the airline that he said he was on, and he wasn't at the hotel at the time that he said that it was. So, but they don't really seem to investigated him all that stringently, which I think is very weird because he did have a very large property. I'm gonna have to edit that out. I'm losing my voice. He did have a really large property, and they never really searched it. So it's quite possible that he killed the whole family, that he took Edward, that he killed him later, that he buried him like out on his land or some shit like that. But they, like I said, he's dead now, so I don't know, but they never did find Edward Mapps. Nobody ever heard from him ever again after that phone call. The only other creepy thing was that in 1966, which was 4 years after the murder, somebody left flowers on Christine and Julie Louise's grave, and it was the day before Edward and Christine's wedding anniversary, and they never found out who did that either. So they don't know if Edward did it and he's still alive somewhere, if the dad did it and he killed all three of them. No one really knows. So, yeah. So, this case freaked me out. And it's weird because I feel like it's not as well known as some of the other, like, bigger, some of the other family massacres, like I said, like the Hinterkaifeck farm and everything. I mean, that one's creepy because that dude was probably, like, living in their fucking house and shit like that. But, I mean, this one, there's just so many little details about it, and I don't know. I kind of suspect that it was probably the father-in-law. Oh, but yeah. What do I know? It does sound...
Yeah,
it's sketchy.
The messages and...
Yeah, it's sketchy that he lied about where he was.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
At that particular time. But,
I was on this plane.
Yeah. Alaska Airlines is like, you were not. We did not have a plane going from there. Yeah. So, okay. Let's see. What's the next one? Next one, this happened in California. This is the Bowles family. This happened in Crestline, California. This was, what freaking year was this? I have no idea.
65?
Was it?
Summer of 65.
Yeah,
Jenny.
thank you.
Here we go.
Get your face in frame, Jenny. You're off this.
I know, but I'm trying to read and I can't,
Okay.
All right. So this happened in 1965. Jim and Darlene Bowles, they had two teenage boys, 13-year-old Bobby and 12-year-old Tommy. They were originally from LA, but they actually they were talking about, building a cabin out in Crestline, out in the mountains, and moving out there, kind of getting away from the city and everything. I'm not sure if they were building it as a vacation cabin or if they were actually planning on moving there, permanently. There was kind of conflicting details about that. But they had bought some land up there in the 50s in 1955, but they just finished a cabin in the summer of 1965. So the weekend before the murder happened, they actually went up there and took a bunch of furniture and stuff. And then they're like, okay, well, next weekend we're going to come up here and we're just going to relax and everything's up here now. So this is the weekend of August 13th, 1965. Now the family, they go to the store, they pick up the supplies for the, to go up to the cabin, and they drive up to the cabin. Now they're supposed to be back on Sunday night because they have to work the next day. But they don't come back. So, both the husband and the wife's moms are like flipping out. Now, there was a very large gap in time because nobody could remember exactly, it's the 60s, they didn't have cell phones or anything. So they're calling the people's work and they're like, did they show up? Where are they? There was no phone installed at the cabin yet. The phone company hadn't been there to hook the phone up. And no one could quite remember where it was. Like they had family members that had been to the land, but it had been many years and they couldn't remember where it was. So they had to kind of go all over the place and get these people. It was like, where is this cabin? Because there was a bunch of cabins like in this area. All right, so they get up to the cabin. I believe it was Darlene's brother and a friend who was familiar with the area. So they go up to the cabin and they look in the window and the first thing they see is a dead dog. Someone has killed their dog.
Damn.
And left it on the couch.
Fuck.
Yeah.
The couch?
Yeah, it was like the dog was lying dead on the couch. The dog's name was Barbara.
How was the dog killed? Does it say?
Barbara.
Shot.
No. Shit.
It was shot.
Fuck. You're the worst kind of person if you do shit like that.
Seriously.
She loves dogs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Anybody like this is funny because we were watching what was that movie, John Wick?
Yeah.
Where everybody was talking about he went on this big long revenge thing because
They
somebody
killed
killed his
the
dog.
dog. Yeah,
I was like, I understand.
That's like a member of your family.
Yeah, I'm like if somebody did something bad to my cat,
It's a creature.
Yeah, I'm like, you are in big fucking trouble. Yeah, so they see the dead dog, so they're like, okay, well this is not good. So they go into the house. There's blood like leading from the living room into the master bedroom, and they see 3 of the family members, the dad and one of the boys and the mom, like just laying in pools of blood in the master bedroom. So they run out, to get the sheriff's substation and get the cops to come. Now then later when the cops come, they also find the other little boy who was actually underneath his mother because it looked like she had tried to shield him from the bullets. So yeah, so he was underneath her. But yeah, they found all four of them were killed with a .22 caliber rifle. Now, there was a lot of weird things happening around these cabins, and a lot of the, I don't want to get too much into it. Like, in my book, it's like a huge long thing, like a timeline and everything. People saw weird cars. People saw weird people. There was a party going on at a cabin that night, so no one would have heard anyone screaming or heard gunshots because the party was really loud. And they said it must have happened sometime like late Saturday night because, people had seen the family like just doing normal family shit, like, all day, all night Friday and all day Saturday. They were farting around in the yard and the kids were playing and stuff. And then by Sunday morning, their car was gone. And then they later found their car like in the woods, like a little way away. And there was no blood in it or anything like that, but they found the key like underneath it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so they don't know like who drove that there. There was another guy that lived around there that said, I believe it was either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, that he was coming into his cabin and he saw this red car. It was a Dodge, I think. And he like passed it, and he said there was a guy driving it. He was like driving really fast, but he couldn't, give a good description of the guy. So they really have no idea. Like somebody basically, nobody forced their way in, nothing like that. Like somebody just walked in and shot all 4 of them, like herded them all into the master bedroom and totally shot all of them.
Bastard.
Yeah, so there were like, I don't know, there was this one thing with a guy that he had been a cook at this cafe that was right down the hill. And actually the family had eaten there on Friday night when they first got into town. And the cook had gotten fired like a week before. He was, he had been in prison for a sex offense, but they didn't really specify what it was.
Why do you come out of prison for that?
Yeah, huh?
He came out of prison then too.
Yeah.
Why do you anyway?
What? I don't know.
Why do you not just stay for the rest of your life? Anyway.
Well, they don't know all the details. They don't even know what he was in there for.
I heard sex offense. You don't need to come out.
Well, this was the 60s, and I thought the implication.
That could be anything.
It's true.
I thought the implication was.
He may have peed in public.
Might have been giving some dude a blowjob.
I think that might have been what it was. I think that might have been what it was.
Well,
because they said one of the conditions of his parole was that he couldn't get into any relationships with men.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So I think it was something
forget it.
like
Sex
that.
offense was gay. That's what it is.
So the
they
laws
called
were
sex
fucked,
offense. Yeah,
basically.
so it was fucked up back then.
Remember, we were talking about law. You can't really go with what they say.
Don't go against the law.
Oh my God!
It's written.
The law. Woo.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So that was a condition of his parole, and apparently he did get into a relationship with one of his coworkers at this restaurant, and they fired him. But evidently, on the day that the Bowles family came into town and were eating at this restaurant, one of the girls that worked there, like a waitress, she saw him like in the parking lot, and he was like watching them. But they don't know if it was, they don't know if it was him, but they did think it was weird that he was like hanging around, like even though he didn't work there anymore. And, they had some false confessions, they had all this other kind of shit happen. But there was one guy that they looked into. They got, the cops in Crestline got a message from the cops in Mobile, Alabama. And they said there's this guy named George Robert Stewart. He was a suspect in molesting and murdering 2 little boys in Mobile. And they thought that he was heading out to California because he had a friend that lived out there. And when they looked into his past, they discovered that he had been working at a cabin like only a couple miles from where the Bowles cabin was at the time that they were killed. So they thought it was some religious camp or some shit. Now, they actually did end up catching him in Texas, and he said, yeah, I was in that area at that time, but he's like, I never killed anybody. He seemed kind of, they said he was kind of, he seemed kind of slow. You know what I mean? So they weren't really sure. Now, he seemed kind of offended that they would have implied that he's like, I would never hurt a dog. Because they said, did you go and kill a dog and kill this family? And he's like, I would never kill a dog. I would never do that.
I would just commit. Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry.
You don't know if,
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty.
I'm an asshole.
Yeah. So that guy, they could never find enough, evidence to pin it on him. And actually, he never got arrested. I don't think he ever got arrested for the double murder in Mobile, Alabama either, because I don't think they ever had enough evidence for him there. So they don't really know. There, like I said, no motive really. I'm sure there was a motive, but they don't know what it was. Damn it. And so somebody just walked into this cabin and shot a whole family to death.
That's what you do, I guess. Just going take them all out.
And the dog, like I said. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Gross.
There's no telling what that was all about.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Sounds like something a kid would do. It sounds like something like a 17-year-old boy would do. He just found a shotgun. He just found a gun, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna wipe these people out. Something crazy. It was something stupid.
He thought he was a badass or something.
Something stupid, just to see what it was like. That kind of deal.
All right, now this happened in my home state of Florida. Which you'd think there'd be more of these from Florida because of the whole Florida man.
Yeah, Florida. Yeah, Florida's still awesome. There's an amount of awesomeness to Florida.
There are still prehistoric birds here, people.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah, they try to get in my house. I got this shit on video.
Yeah, they knock on the windows. Because I
accidentally fed one.
You're not really supposed to feed them because they're very loud and
they're smart, man. They do not forget.
They don't forget. If you feed them once, they will come and knock at your door.
Yeah, and then they'll come and bring their children. Feed him,
cute.
Feed the baby.
They know that.
Yeah. Feed the baby. Give me some granola. Yeah. Okay. So this actually happened in Tallahassee, Florida. This is the Sims family. This family was originally from Mississippi.
Well, did they talk? Like the Sims, the Sims.
You're gonna be okay.
All right. So they had just moved to Tallahassee from Mississippi, Robert Sims was 42, director of data processing for the Florida Department of Education. His wife Helen was 34, and she worked at the nearby church. She was a church secretary, and she also played the organ or the piano there. Yeah. And they had 3 daughters, 17-year-old Jenny, which is also my name, but I'm
You gotta tell them what your name is.
considerably older than
They know
17.
what your name is.
Jenny's her name. This is Jenny, you guys.
Hi. I guess you guys didn't know. Okay. What are you doing? Oh, okay.
Get a drink.
Okay. All right. 16-year-old Judy and 12-year-old Joy. Now, this happened in 1966. It was October 22nd, and Tallahassee, there was like a whole bunch of people in town because it was like a huge
Football game?
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God!
It was the Seminoles versus the Bulldogs. Yeah, so everybody's there. So Robert and Helen are at home. They're watching the game or listening to the game on the radio or whatever. Their youngest daughter Joy is at home with them. Their other 2 daughters were out babysitting for people that had gone to the game.
For
and they were,
babysitting
watching
reasons.
their kids for babysitting reasons. So Jenny Sims, she finishes up her babysitting job first.
Not babysitting.
Her babysitting job. It was probably that too.
Could have been.
Because you know how
Depending
they do.
on the age.
Babysitting. Sure. So she comes home at about 11:15. She goes in the house, and it's all dark in there, dark and quiet. And she goes into the master bedroom and sees her father lying across the bed, bound and blindfolded. A big pool of blood on the bedspread underneath him. He had been shot once through the head. Helen Sims was on the floor, like laying at an angle, also bound, blindfolded, covered in blood. She had been shot twice in the head and once in the leg. 12-year-old Joy lay beside her mother, still in her nightgown. She had been tied up, shot once in the head, and stabbed 6 times in the chest.
Oh my goodness.
So at the time, see, this is one thing when you're like researching cases. A lot of, particularly the girls underage, they didn't like to say if they were sexually assaulted, I guess. So some sources of this case that I said she was, and some said she wasn't. Mm-hmm. But her underwear had been pulled down, so there was something sexual going on, and it's like, she was only 12, so they wouldn't really say. So they said, and actually there's a really good documentary about this called I think it's called 641 Muriel Court Drive, because that was the address. And it goes into like a lot of detail about it. But the crazy thing about this is, I guess at Tallahassee at the time, they didn't have the whole 911, you call 911, you get an ambulance. So Jenny Sims calls the funeral home, because the funeral home like doubled as the ambulance, I guess. Oh, wow. So yeah, Bevan's Funeral Home, which was just nearby. So they came there, and then they got the cops to come there. Now there's been a lot of criticism because they think that the cops just kind of came there and trampled all over the crime scene because they were just all laissez-faire about it. They're just like, yeah, whatever, I don't need gloves, I don't need this and that, which you see a lot, like in the 50s and 60s. Yeah, it seems like they didn't really have that whole forensic evidence thing down really well yet. They're just kind of like, I'm just going to touch stuff, I'm going to wipe it on my ass, you know what I mean?
Did you see this?
Yeah, look at that, I'm going to lick it, you know what I mean? It was that kind of shit. So, I don't think it was that bad, but I just don't think they really were all that stringent. Yeah. But, so they didn't see, there was, no forced entry, didn't appear that anything had been stolen. There was no struggle. They just figured somebody had come in and, like, herded them all into the bedroom and killed them. Now, one of the people that they thought this was, the first suspect, and actually some people in town still think that it was him, was the pastor of the church where Helen Sims worked. His name was C.A. Roberts, or Cecil Albert Roberts. Now, he was known as something of a player. Like, he was a womanizer. He had, like, a lot of affairs, and he was always, like, hitting on women and stuff. So they kind of thought, well, maybe...
They don't do that.
I know. They never would. They never would. Yes. I know. Of all things. Yeah, so they thought, well, maybe he made a pass at Helen, and she told him to get fucked, or... maybe she was threatening to, maybe he was up to some sketchy shit, and she was going to tell everybody about it, because she had quit her job only a couple days before she got murdered. So, what was that? Pete! She's so funny. But it turned out that he had pretty much the best alibi you can have. He was actually the team pastor for the Florida State Seminoles, and he had been at the game, and he was on tape the whole time. They said the only time that he wasn't on, because he was standing on the sidelines, so it's like you could see him in the whole entire TV broadcast. They're like, the only time that you couldn't see him was halftime, and they're like, there wasn't enough time for him to have let the game go on and murdered the whole family and then come back, because they're like, he was still standing there, like at this thing. So, so they said even though he, fucked around and, kind of made passes at women and stuff, and he kind of had a reputation for that, but there was no way that he could have killed anybody. However, the rumors about it actually ruined his career, and he had to move away. So
I can see that.
Yeah, because, even if you didn't do it. Now, the weird thing about this, and I don't want to go too much into it, but evidently, I was reading a blog post about this, and one of the guys that's like the prime suspect is still alive, and he's commenting on there. Now, they think that him and his girlfriend, his name is Vernon Fox Jr., and his girlfriend at the time, who he actually later married, but they're divorced now, her name was Mary Charles LaJoy. And they lived in that neighborhood, and people thought they were kind of weirdos. Like, she was sort of into, I don't want to say necrophilia, but she was kind of into, like, she would go to the funeral home and, like, I want to steal the burial shrouds, and she was, like, one of those kind of people. So, yeah.
There is that kind of people?
Yeah.
What the hell kind of people is that?
And they kind of had, they didn't really have a motive specifically, like they didn't really know the Sims all that well, but there were rumors that Vernon was kind of weird and that he would like peek in people's windows. Like he'd been reported for like peeping and stuff, even though he denies it. And like,
because
even though he says no, I would never do that, because there were rumors that he had been peeping in the window looking at their 12-year-old daughter Joy. Ew. So he was kind of like come out and he's like, no, I like older women, I don't like little girls. But the creepy thing, like I said, is that when I was researching this case and I'm like reading all these comments like on this blog that was written about it, I'm like, oh my God, that's him. He's talking about it, and he's like he had all this information about it. He's like, no, this is what happened, I did this, I did that, like on this particular day, and my ex-girlfriend or ex-wife, I guess, because they got married later, she's crazy and she's just trying to, although I do kind of feel like the girlfriend is kind of a nutcase. And like I said, if you go find this documentary about it, like I said, it's called 641 Muriel Court Drive, there's an interview with him. He sounds a little sketchy too, but there is footage of her from the 90s, because apparently after the two of them got divorced, she immediately went to the police and said, Vernon did it. So they're not real sure if maybe she was just mad, but she went to the police and she talked to them for like 6 hours and they recorded all of it. And she sounds like a little bit of a whack job, sort of. So I don't, yeah, so I don't know if it was just her, if both of them did it, because she kind of sounds like she might know something about it, like the way she's talking. But the way she was talking, it was like she knew just enough, like she could say just enough, like to not get in trouble.
Right.
But you know what I mean? She was just like, well, what if, like, what would you do to me? What would you? She says weird shit like that.
So what if it had happened?
Yeah. And like one of the weird things she said too was that when she was talking about Vernon, like going after these girls, and one of the 12-year-old is dead, right? And she's like, that little girl was so ugly. Oh. And I was like, I went like that. Like when I saw her, I'm like, you did not just fucking say that. Oh my God. We was talking about what an ugly little girl she was. And it's like, I don't know why Vernon liked her. She was so ugly. She was 12 years old.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, she just like said creepy shit like that. It's like, seriously, go watch this documentary about this. It's the craziest fucking shit you've ever seen. And there's interviews with this Vernon guy too, because of course he denies it, but his story's kind of changed over the years, like in its little details. Yeah. Like he's always kind of like, oh, his story is that he was walking home because him and his girlfriend.
See, what had happened was, that's his story. If
Yeah.
it's not so that.
Well, he says they went to the movies, which they did because like the ticket taker saw them and everything like that. They went to the drive-in, but he says that when they came home, like she dropped him off and he was walking back to his house, and then this car passed him and there was two guys in it, and they opened the back door and were like, oh, hey, get in. Oh, wait, you're not the guy. So his whole story is that these were hitmen who were going to kill this family for whatever reason. I don't know if he had a reason.
They had
why.
to have been hitmen.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, he must have thought
I was walking home from the movies when I was approached by some hitmen.
Right. He's like, oh, they must have thought that I was one of them and asked me to get
Vernon.
Yeah.
Vernon. You know you would lie.
So I kind of think, like I said, it was either him and the girlfriend or it was just the girlfriend, honestly. Because that girlfriend... Yeah.
You guys are
They don't have the whole, I don't know if you can get the whole like 6 hours of her testimony anywhere, but there's quite a bit of it.
I'm going to be yelling at the screen.
In the documentary.
I have to see this shit.
Yeah, so this is like some crazy shit.
Oh my goodness. Fucking people.
And this Vernon Fox guy comments.
You want something else?
He comments on blog posts about this case. And it's creepy. It's kind of creepy. And it's weird because it's like, this is Tallahassee, Florida. It's like, I'm from Florida, but I had never heard of this case ever. And apparently it's pretty,
Just stop it.
Just stop
There's already enough bad shit, Vernon. It's Florida. Come on, Vernon.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This is the Bricka family. 28-year-old Jerry, his wife Linda, who was 23, and they had a 4-year-old daughter named Debbie. They moved to Green Township in 1963, which is right outside of Cincinnati. Jerry actually worked for...
It sounds like it's outside of Cincinnati.
Doesn't it, though?
Green Township, just outside of Cincinnati.
Green Township.
Quaint.
Yeah.
Rum Sunset.
All right. So Jerry worked for Monsanto. He was a chemical engineer. Now Linda, she used to work as a flight attendant, but then after she moved, she just took part-time work at a veterinary clinic. Their neighbors said they seemed like totally nice, normal people. They said they kept kind of to themselves, but not in like a creepy, weird way or anything like that. They said, their little girl would play with other little girls in the neighborhood, like that had, the same age or whatever. So then comes the morning of Monday, September 26th, 1966.
What's going on in the 60s, man? All this shit's happening
I know.
60s.
I know.
Hell.
It's like, we were talking about this the other day. I'm like, it seems like, everybody's like, oh, violent, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, yeah, the 60s were bad.
They lied. They all about, the 60s is all about love. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, like the flip side of that
Watch
was everyone
13
was
o'clock.
murdering each other.
No, it's the truth right here on 13 o'clock. The 60s was fucked.
Most of the worst shit was like 60s and 70s, easily.
And look at no forensics. You can get away with killing people, families and shit.
Yeah.
Fuck. Crazy.
Well, yeah, you can
it wasn't just
in.
all cool style. It was murder and fucking people getting away with it.
Right? You could just walk in and kill a bunch of people and like, what happened. All right, so it's Monday morning, September 26th, which is my birthday, incidentally.
Oh, hey.
But so the neighbors are noticing, they're like, wow, Linda never brought in the garbage cans. They're like, and she always does that. They're like, and we haven't seen any of the family since Sunday night. But nobody goes over there yet because they're just like, oh, maybe they just went somewhere. It's whatever. But then they notice, the day's going on. None of the kids come out to play. Their dogs don't come outside. No one picks up the newspapers. So then finally on Tuesday night, two of their neighbors come over and knock on the door. Nobody answers, obviously. The door was not locked. They opened it, And the one neighbor was
death
like...
wafted overwhelmingly out toward them. Oh, Jenny. Oh, man.
Yeah, they opened the door and they knew that they were all dead in there because they could smell it. And so they said, we're not going in there. We're going.
Horrifying.
They went to the cops. So, yeah. All right, so here we go. Jerry and Linda, they had both been bound and stabbed multiple times. Jerry had been stabbed 9 times in his neck and back. Also been gagged with a sock, which had been taped into his mouth. Linda was stabbed 8 times in the chest. Plus, she had a bunch of little cuts on her face. She hadn't been raped, though, they don't think. They found the 4-year-old up in her bedroom in her pajamas. She was stabbed 4 times, and the knife had gone all the way through her.
Oh, no.
All 4 times.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it was like this really long bladed knife. So they figured, okay, so no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. No sign of a struggle. They had 2 dogs, but the killer had sedated them and locked them in a room, like in a separate room to keep them out of the way.
Hold on, dogs. Just you wait while... What? Okay, what the...
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and kill your whole family, but you dogs, you good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What the fuck?
That just seems really weird. Well, especially in that last one, like where they said, well, fuck it, I'm gonna shoot the dog too. And this one where like they took the trouble to like put the dogs in a separate room and like put them to sleep.
But I mean, the 4-year-old's gotta go, but you dogs.
Yeah, good.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah, they never found the murder weapon, and they thought that maybe what the guy did was that he took one of the newspapers from the front yard that the family didn't pick up and wrapped the knife in it and then put it out in the garbage because the garbage was collected on Monday.
Oh man.
So yeah. Now at first they thought, well, they actually had a serial killer in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Strangler, operating in the area at the time, but the MO was not similar, and it was kind of a distance away, so they thought probably that wasn't who it was. Then they thought maybe, I think the main culprit for this was the veterinarian at the clinic where Linda worked. There were rumors that she had been having an affair with him, but goodness. I don't know how accurate those are. Some people that worked there said, oh yeah, we saw them together, in the cars and stuff. His name was Dr. Leininger, Fred Leininger. They did question him, and he was kind of like evasive a little bit. Not so much about the murder, but about the affair. He's like, no, it's just a professional relationship or whatever.
People admit to that shit too.
Yeah, but then after that, he wouldn't cooperate with the authorities anymore.
Oh,
so,
that locked the dogs
Under the
away.
advice of his lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Yeah.
Not an admission of guilt.
The dogs are okay though.
Yeah.
Just a motherfucker covering his nuts.
Wow.
Now, one of the weird things about this case is that one of the Bricka's neighbors, Nettie Caudell, she knew Linda pretty well. She had a little girl about the same age, and their little girls used to play together. She said that Linda had been acting kind of weird, like for a month before her death, like kind of nervous, like she thought something bad was going to happen. And then it turned out that she had known these 2 flight attendants that had worked for United Airlines, Lisa Wick and Lonnie Trumbull, that got murdered in June of 1966 in Seattle. And so the neighbor said she talked about that a lot. So she wasn't sure if she thought she was going to get murdered just because these 2 girls that she knew got murdered, or if that had anything to do with anything. But they just said that was kind of odd because she had worked with those 2 women, even though it was a totally different city. So there were a couple of other kind of related crimes to it. There was one, a girl named Valerie Percy, who was actually stabbed in her bed in her house with her whole family there, and they never caught the person that did that either. And they thought maybe there was kind of a relationship there because they thought maybe the two families knew each other, kind of traveled in the same social circles. But, you know, they don't know about the connection there either. But this, again, is a case where, well, it's just like most of these cases where they have no fucking idea, like, why anybody did this. All right. So this next one, this is a pretty well-known case, the case of the Robeson family. It's probably better known as the Goodhart murders. This was another one that kind of happened in a cabin, although this happened on Lake Michigan. This happened in 1968, again, fucking 60s. Told you.
Back when motherfuckers were crazy.
I guess. Well, like you said, you get away with stuff.
I think it's lead poisoning.
I know, that's Tom's theory, and he's sticking to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so it's July of 1968. Now, this guy named Chauncey Bliss, he runs this place called the Blisswood Resort, where all of these vacation cabins are. All these neighbors start complaining that there's a bad smell coming out of this particular cabin that belongs to this family called the Robesons. He thinks it's just a dead animal, but of course he goes in there, and it's not a dead animal.
Oh, damn. Oh, damn.
42-year-old ad executive and magazine publisher Richard Robeson had been shot 5 times with a .22 caliber semi-automatic rifle.
Well, it took 5 times.
The bullets fired through a window of the cabin.
Shit.
He had also been beaten in the head with a hammer.
Oh,
damn.
Richard's wife Shirley, who was 40 years old, she'd been shot several times with a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol, which to me suggests 2 perpetrators.
Yeah, probably.
The couple also had 4 children. 19-year-old Richie, 16-year-old Gary, 12-year-old Randall, and 7-year-old Susan had all been shot in the head with the same pistol that had killed their mother. Susan had also been bludgeoned with the hammer. So by the time they found the bodies, they were really decomposed. So they thought maybe that they had been killed about June 25th, so they'd been in there for a while. Shirley Robeson's body was posed. They didn't specify, and I haven't seen the photo, but they said they'd been posed to suggest a sexual motive.
Yeah.
But they weren't sure if she'd been raped because of the decomposition factor. So they didn't know if it was just some rape, like they wanted to stage it to look like that. They found some shell casings. They found a bloody shoe print. They thought what happened was the killer came up and started shooting through the windows and then came around to the back door, which was unlocked. Now, the first guy that they thought it might be was this guy named Joseph Scalaro III. He was 30 years old. He had worked for Richard Robeson at Impresario magazine, which, because the Robeson was a magazine publisher. Now, this Joseph Scalaro guy apparently embezzled about $60,000 from the company. Now, some people said that on the day that the Robesons were last seen, that Robeson had been on the phone with somebody and he looked like he was upset. So it could have been that he just discovered the embezzlement and he called Scalaro and was like, hey, what the fuck? And then Scalaro was like, well, I'm just going to, I'm going to come kill you. Scalaro also was known to own 2 guns of those particular calibers. When they tested the shell casings, they couldn't specifically say that was the exact, but they said it could have been. And they always, and I love this too, they always give the same story. It's like whenever they're like, well, you have a gun that is the same caliber as this gun that was used to shoot this family. It's like, oh yeah, I used to have one, but I lost it.
I lost it.
I lost it. Or they always say that, or I lost it in a craps game, or I sold it, or something like that.
I was holding that episode. That wasn't mine.
Yeah, it's like they always say that kind of shit.
Oh my God, lost it. Oh my God.
Now he said, the interesting thing too is that, okay, Scalaro, he had a pair of new shoes, and the soles of the shoes looked a lot like the bloody footprints, but the shoes that he had were new, like they hadn't been worn. So they don't know if he had another pair just like it that he threw away, and he just bought another pair to replace it, or whatever. But he's like, these weren't the same shoes, but they had like a similar sole. Now he told the cops, I was in Detroit at a plumbing convention when the family was murdered, which he could have been, but nobody there like remembered him. Like he couldn't find anybody.
I'm sorry. A plumbing conviction.
I know.
Yeah, you didn't know they did that shit? Sitting around looking at each other's pipes.
The hell goes on there? Anyway.
I know, that's really got to be a good
I mean,
time.
I'm not trying to diss plumbers.
Time.
Plumbers, you are necessary and we love you. Well,
Yeah.
what do you do at conventions?
When you got shit fucking piled up in your house, the most important motherfucker in the world is a plumber. Because
Yeah,
you're
it's
gonna
true.
call it, man, I got shit in my house. Come get it out
True.
of here.
It's true. Yeah, but
Somebody deal
plumbing
with this shit in my house.
conventions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this guy, it's like, you know, there was some circumstantial evidence, but they didn't have enough physical evidence. They didn't think they could pin it on him. So, you know, if he did it, he got away with it. The only other guy I think they ever really looked at there was a serial killer named John Norman Collins, and he actually got convicted of one murder in 1970. But they think that he did a lot more murders and abductions and shit like that they never pinned on him. So they're like, it could be him. There's not really much of a connection, but it could have just been a random murder. Evidently, Scalaro was pretty much the prime suspect. A couple years later, it was 1973, there was a new chief prosecutor, and he said, I'm going to get that guy. I'm going to go, I think I have enough to pursue a conviction. And then Scalaro shot himself. Damn. So, yeah. So it's officially still an unsolved case because their main suspect...
Well, he went and solved the case now, didn't he?
I guess he must have, because, I mean, he had a motive. I mean, you know, he stole all that money from the company, evidently.
Oh, man.
All right.
He went in. Well, anyway.
All right. So, okay. This actually happened in 2000. It was December 31st, 2000. And this actually, this was the Setagaya family. 44-year-old Miyazawa, his 41-year-old wife Yasuko, and their children, 8-year-old Nina and 6-year-old Rei, discovered murdered in their house on December 31st, 2000 by Yasuko's mother. Rei had been strangled. The rest of the family had been stabbed. Oh, man. This is a creepy little detail. They said analysis of the crime scene concluded the family had been murdered on December 30th, after which the killers stayed in the house for several hours, using the family computer and eating ice cream before leaving. That's like, I'm not saying like that's worse than murdering the family, but
that's
fuck, man.
so twisted.
Right. It's like it's bad enough.
They killed the family and fucking put a cherry on top.
Right.
Hey, ice cream.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
Yeah.
Hey, it was there. They gonna get some of that ice cream.
I guess.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Use the computer, looking at the porn.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
they
probably.
were like, doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, there's like dead people in the house, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get some moose tracks.
This is shit. Yeah, right?
In the freezer.
Oh,
man.
Jenny.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
He also left numerous articles of his clothing at the scene, as well as the 2 knives which were used in the killings.
The fuck?
So what, did he leave the house naked or what?
Oh, he wore some clothes out of that bitch. He went and
Or he
fucking
wore
took his pic.
one clothes over like another set of clothes?
Oh, he's an asshole.
Maybe.
Oh.
Now, yeah. So a taxi driver who was going by says that he picks up 3 middle-aged men around the time of they thought the murder was, and he said that the guy left behind blood marks on the back seat of his taxi. So, yeah. It says the investigation into the murders is among the largest in Japanese history,
Oh, yeah.
involving over 246,000 investigators. As of 2015, 40 officers were still assigned to the case full time.
God damn.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. This is a disgusting detail, but you guys know how much I love that.
Tell us.
Police determined that the killer had eaten string beans and sesame seeds the previous day after analyzing feces from the killer in the family's bathroom.
Damn, he didn't flush.
Yeah.
That dude didn't flush.
That's what I mean. It's like he's just piling indignity upon indignity. He kills an entire family.
This rugged motherfucker.
Yeah, and he eats ice cream in their house. He takes a shit in their house and doesn't flush it. It's like, what the fuck, man?
That's vile.
It is.
Oh.
It is.
Ew.
Yeah. So this dude is still at large, and this guy, this happened fairly recently, so they might still be able to get this guy. And now they have DNA. They DNA'd his shit and everything.
Oh my god, they need to put unsolved mysteries on this.
Yeah,
shit,
he has type A blood. That his mother is probably European.
How do they know that?
From DNA.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. They said killer has a mother of European descent, possibly from a country near the Mediterranean or Adriatic Sea. The killer's father is of Asian descent, with the DNA appearing in 1 in 4 or 5 Koreans, 1 in 10 Chinese, and 1 in 13 Japanese. He's believed to be about 170 centimeters tall and of thin build, because they can tell that too from your DNA.
Damn.
Also, they can tell what you look like. Have you seen that they can do that now?
Oh my goodness.
If they have your DNA, they can actually do like a reconstruction of exactly what you look like.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Because I've seen that they've started doing that recently.
Whoa.
Designer babies on the way too, I bet you.
On the way? They probably got them already.
Yeah, Chinese
babies.
Yeah, Chinese probably buying them.
All right, this is the I hope I'm pronouncing this right. The Greeno family or the Greenough family. This happened in Australia, and these were axe murders. This happened in 1993, which is kind of recent for an axe murder. You don't see a lot of axe murders anymore. Now, this one, they actually know who did it. The victims were Karen McKenzie, she was 33, and she had 3 children named Daniel, who was 16, Amara, who was 7, and Katrina, who was 5. And they kind of lived out in this this farm kind of area in Western Australia. And this was February 21st, 1993. Now, they know that they were killed by this guy named Bill Mitchell. And he was just like a friend of hers.
Nice fucking friend.
Right. But apparently, okay, this says on the day of the crime, Mitchell had been spending the day getting high on a mixture of cannabis, alcohol, and amphetamines.
Listen, don't blame the damn weed. If you a stupid motherfucker, you're gonna do dumb shit. Never mind. You don't. Whatever.
Tell it.
You don't need to be intoxicated to be a fucking asshole. And we are humans, and we all have the equal propensity to be a stupid motherfucker or a nice motherfucker. Don't blame the weed, the alcohol, or the amphetamines.
It's the person. It's not the weed. It's not
They're just saying.
Anyway.
So, yeah. And I love that this write-up says, the trouble began with the sound of a car. The trouble. That's a nice way of putting it.
The fucking trouble.
Mass murder.
Oh, my.
Trouble. That's nice. Began with the sound of a car arriving at the McKenzie home. Daniel, who was one of the kids, went out to see who it was and was confronted by Bill Mitchell. And Bill Mitchell was apparently really mad about something. He, wielding an axe, killed Daniel and headed for the house, where he found Karen asleep in the lounge room. After attacking her with the axe and killing her, he then raped her. After he killed her.
Yeah, that's how those motherfuckers do it. That's how they fucking do it. I don't understand.
That is.
I don't understand it. You got to have a serious problem.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, that's also quite an understatement.
You got to have a serious problem.
My.
That's also quite an understatement.
I'm like,
yeah. So then he goes upstairs and kills the other 2 girls as well. So I guess this guy had been a farmhand. I'm not super sure what the motive was.
He was an asshole.
He just got really upset one day, but he actually did get convicted of the murders in 1995. He was only 24 years old when he got convicted.
Is he dead yet?
4 concurrent terms of life imprisonment.
Is he dead yet?
No, he's still alive.
Fucker.
Yeah. Yeah, evidently, I guess.
At least he was caught.
Yeah, and evidently there was a big outcry because I think at first they were thinking, oh, we'll give him parole after how many years, but then the public said, oh no,
he had a swimming career. Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, he
fuck you, whatever the fuck is. You know that fucking college kid that raped that fucking girl. Fuck you.
Shauna's fucking hilarious.
So the next one is the Dardeen family.
Oh man, I just read 2 words on that shit.
I know, she keeps looking at my notes because I have my notes like right here. Like if you're, I don't know how that's gonna work out, but yeah,
it's gonna be all right, Sean.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what it was that you read.
Yeah.
Upset you, yeah, because I just thought. All right, this is the Dardeen family. This happened on November 18th, 1987. Police were called to the mobile home of Russell Keith Dardeen, who is 29, and his family outside Ina, Illinois, after he failed to show up for work that day. There they found the bodies of his wife and son, both brutally beaten. Ruby Elaine Dardeen, 30, who had been pregnant with the couple's daughter, was beaten so badly she went into labor, and the killer or killers also beat the newborn to death.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Man, that's bad.
Yeah. So, okay, the killings had apparently taken place the day before. Investigators at first believed that Keith, the dad, was the prime suspect. However, that theory was discredited the next day when his body was found in a nearby field. He had been shot and his genitals mutilated. His car was found parked near the police station in Benton, Illinois.
That dude was pissed off, man.
Forensic, yeah.
Further, and it just went further. Like, geez.
Yeah.
That dude was really pissed off.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, I was like this. Yeah, this one's kind of depressing. Well, they're all depressing. This one they think might have been a serial killer named Tommy Lynn Sells. He's actually in prison now for some other shit, and I think he either confessed to this and then recanted, or So they kind of think that he's probably the one. Like, I wrote this big long thing about it, but I don't really want to go into it because I'm losing my voice. And that's like, yeah, pretty sucky right there. Right? Yeah.
Okay, we had audio problems right here, so we're going to have to spoon this in. We're going to have to do a little repair job. It's like a little patch. This is the case about the kids that were trying to get to Convergence, right?
Yes.
All right, now check this out. Check this out, guys.
I
was involved in this case.
Well, sort of.
In a way.
I
was at that Convergence.
Like you're thinking.
I was at that Convergence.
Where did we see this story first time? We saw like a whole documentary about this shit, right? It wasn't on Unsolved Mysteries because it's solved.
Yeah, I was at that Convergence in New Orleans when that happened, and some goth kids said, Hey Tom, do you know some kids were trying to come here and they killed some people on the way? Yeah. And I said, really? Yeah, they were religious people. They started preaching to them, and they shot them. And I was like, those fucking assholes.
It was exactly that.
Yeah,
and
I was like, man, this shit's gonna come down on us, and it did.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the Lilla Lid family.
Yeah.
And this actually happened. This happened in 1997 in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Now there were these 6 kids from Kentucky. And they were mostly like teenagers, 14 to, however old. And they were
living in this shithole town.
Yeah.
Bad place.
And they were kind of those kids where it's like, I'm going to wear all black and I worship Satan.
They didn't quite fit in.
And all this other kind of...
So they kind of tried their hand at being a goth. But
right, even though
they weren't really part of the scene, and there was no internet really to speak of at that time, just maybe those bitches probably couldn't even afford web TV, really. Remember web TV?
Yeah, God, that was a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And, they were living kind of bad lives, and they wanted to get the hell out of there and go to Convergence, which is this big goth party where everybody from around the world used to converge on, and it was in New Orleans that year. I was there. Yeah. I lived in that area during that time. I knew people that were helping with the event. And man, when this shit happened, there was kind of like blowback from it. You know what I mean? Because this was in the area. It was right after all those, they shot up Columbine.
I was gonna say, yeah.
There's
I
a
remember.
bunch of stuff coming down, and it was hard being goth back in the day. I mean, you know, people would try to kill you. They would throw stuff at you out of the windows. It was just, it's not like it was today. These kids, they got it easy.
They do kind of.
You old timers know what I'm talking about.
Well, because back in the 80s, people didn't really have any frame of reference. Like nowadays, everybody knows, oh, it's goth, you know.
They didn't know what it was.
Back then, they didn't know what that was.
They knew what Marilyn Manson was, and they didn't like it, and that meant you were one of them. And so they would come after you. They'd always talk about Marilyn Manson, and we didn't really know all that much about Marilyn Manson. He wasn't really the scene. He was kind of had attached himself to the scene.
Yeah. He's from here, isn't he?
Yeah, matter of fact, a good friend of ours knows him.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's from the Orlando area.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's from here originally, but yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories about him. He's not a bad guy. It's just...
Yeah, I've heard he's all right.
No, he's not a bad guy.
But, yeah. So there's basically these 6 kids, and they decide, you know, oh, we're all into devil worshippers. They mostly just did it to rebel, it seemed like to me. So they're like, we're going to go to Convergence. Did they steal a car? I feel like they stole a car.
No, they took their mom's car, and it broke down, and they stole their car.
So they were going to carjack someone, basically. So they,
from what I remember.
So they stop at this rest stop in Tennessee. And they get out of the car, and they're walking around, and then also at the rest stop, there's a van containing the Lilla Lid family. Right.
And they were kind of these Bible thumper type family.
They were Jehovah's Witnesses, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, the dad's name was Vidar, and the wife's name was Delphina.
Yeah, and they were nice people.
Yeah. They had a 6-year-old daughter named Tabitha and a 2-year-old son named Peter.
Yeah.
And they were at this rest stop, and I guess the dad saw these 6 kids, like, walking around, and, they were wearing all black, and they had, like, crazy colored hair or whatever. Yeah. And he decided, I'm going to go over...
He's going to go save their souls.
And talk to them, like, about Jesus or whatever.
Wrong move in this case.
And, and it sucks because... I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know. I
could kind of relate to it because in those days, man, we would get pestered by religious people a lot.
True, yeah.
All right. And they would make a bunch of assumptions about you based on how you were dressed, that you were worshiping the devil or into drugs and other kind of stuff, just all wrapped into one. And it was their duty to save you from sin, I guess.
Although...
When they didn't really know us, you know, so it's kind of like they're just jumping to conclusions. And in this particular case, these were some fucked up kids. I mean...
That's what I mean. In this case, they were actually correct. These kids were very messed up.
Yeah, I wouldn't call all of them bad. Just fucked up. They came from a bad place. They were mistreated a lot. They didn't really have anything, and... They influenced each other in a weird ways where they just kind of became this weird, almost like the Manson cult. It's kind of what they became.
They were kind of like that. They reminded me of that.
But without really a Charlie to guide them. They just kind of made shit up as they went along.
Yeah.
And one of them, it was more than half of them, I believe, were girls, right? Can you actually name which one?
The perpetrators were Natasha Cornett, Dean Mullins, Joseph Risner, Crystal Sturgill, Jason Bryant, and Karen Howell. So Well,
what ended up happening was that they just said, we just want your car, and they robbed them, and then the boy, I think it was the boy that did the shooting.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Nobody's really sure.
When they all went to trial, it was kind of because basically this is what happened. They were like, well, but we just need your car. And the dad, as you would, was just like, well, take the car, take the money, you know, just leave us here, it's fine.
Right.
But of course, one of the kids, I don't know who, was just like, no, you guys all have to get in the van now too. And then they drove these poor people out into the woods and then just stood them all...
Lined them up,
and just shot them all.
Shot them down into the gutter. There's a little culvert there. You know, in the South, we don't really have gutters. It's just a little cutouts on either side of the road for drainage. You know, it's grass everywhere. And they needlessly mowed this family down when they could have just taken the van and left.
That's what I mean. The guy, Peter Lilla Lid was totally like, he even like offered them the money in his wallet and was like, just take the car. You know, it's fine.
It was a tragedy.
It was horrible. And it's like, actually, so
And then they ran over the bodies as they
left.
And and there were little kids with that family.
Yeah, a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and I think one of the little kids did survive.
The 2-year-old survived. He did.
So luckily he survived, but they wiped that family out.
The whole family
for nothing.
Yeah, and it's just the shitty thing too. I mean, as shitty as this whole situation is, the 6 kids went on trial for this, and none of them would admit to who was the shooter.
Yeah.
It's like everybody blamed everybody else for being the instigator. Oh, well, we didn't want to hurt anybody.
In a way, it didn't matter, though, because under American law, they were all... You're
all culpable.
They're all culpable, so they all got life in prison.
Yeah, they did. I think they got like 3 life sentences each or something for the people they killed. Because like I said, and they had a charge of attempted murder, too, because the one kid survived.
And they were very lucky, in a way. Under most American sensibilities of the South, they should have all they should have all received the death penalty.
Yeah, I think they only because they were young,
they were too young
people
for
thought
the death
they were
penalty.
fucked up and everything. Right. But it's like,
a lot of people didn't care. I mean, they've.
I kind of feel like
it was mercy, I believe.
Yeah,
a life sentence was merciful. Well, some people say that life in prison might be worse than death sentence.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you are, but...
They executed that whole family. I think they had to be executed, if you ask me. I'm not a proponent of mercy in cases like that.
There's no excuse. No. Really. I mean, they were all underage, but I mean, they weren't that young.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing was bad.
You know.
They weren't that fucked up.
What it was that they laughed at those religious people because they just thought they were dorky, and then they took their shit and gunned them down.
And it's like, how can you do that? It's like, I just don't understand that.
Well, they were mistreated in the town that they came from.
Why didn't they just take the car? Take the car. Killing little kids. How the fuck can you do that? It's horrible.
Yeah, they came from nowhere, from a nothing place, and they were treated worse than nothing. Their mental health wasn't very good. And there were no prospects for their future to speak of. So, in a way, this was them committing mass suicide and taking a family with them.
And again, they kind of struck me, too, at the time. And I think I mentioned this on our Israel Keys show, where they just have this real edgelord kind of attitude, like, oh, I'm so evil.
And here's the truth about it, is that they killed those people so they could get to convergence, where they thought they'd fit in. But if you saw them, they would never fit in.
No, everyone in the Gotsy would have thought they were weirdos, too.
Yeah, everyone there was dressed to the nines. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. Everyone dressed to the nines. There were people in $1,000 outfits, you know. They were from all over the world, Europe, you know. We had German Goths there. It was a good convergence. They wouldn't have fit in.
No.
They wouldn't have fit in. They were basically just wearing black T-shirts and black shorts.
Yeah, everybody would have thought they were just losers.
And they didn't fit.
Which they were.
And they didn't really look the type, you know what I mean? No.
But like you said, it's kind of sucky that kind of shit gets tied in with the goth scene. Not so much anymore because people understand it now. But I remember the 80s when nobody knew what it was. I mean, everyone just thought I was a Satanist. But then after Columbine and after this case, you know, then everybody thought, oh, and you're a serial killer.
I feel bad about Columbine, though. Had I been there, I could have prevented it.
You think?
I think so. All those guys needed was somebody that was older than them that they would have respected. If they had an older guy that said, listen, guys, I know you don't like your school. In a few more months, you're going to be fucking out of here. Don't worry about that shit. Those kids would have been all right, if you ask me.
That kills me that
the Columbine kids would have been all right. It's just that they could not imagine a world outside of school. That's what I think.
That amazes me still because I mean, high school is just so nothing in the grand scheme of things. I know it's important when you're going through it.
I know somebody that went to Columbine High years before that, 4 or 5 years before that happened. And that was a super yuppie school, and they were very cruel to kids that weren't yuppies, basically, real wealthy. And that's what happened to those guys. You know, they just had a vendetta against that community, even though they had money. They had money, it's just that they didn't like that culture. And I can kind of understand, you know, the yuppie culture is kind of annoying, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But they got so pissed off at being picked on that they were just going to take the whole school down. When all they had to do was just wait a few months and they'd have gotten out.
Yeah, and then everything would
they'd have probably ended up being cool guys.
Yeah.
They just got wrapped up. They didn't have a vision of the future, and that's what happens with some teens. Especially teenage boys under the influence of these fucking crazy-ass hormones.
Well, you get kind of wrapped up in your own problems.
Yeah, and I don't think they knew anybody older than them that liked bands like Cam FDM. You know, they were into that.
Yeah.
They were kind of goth. They're more like goth industrial type guys.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything really wrong with them. It was just that they didn't mix in that. They didn't mix in that environment, and that environment made them worse and worse. And they just got very hell bent on revenge against people that were never going to accept them anyway. And all they had to do was just wait.
Yeah.
You know.
But I guess when you're that age, you can't.
Yeah, they couldn't.
I don't remember what it's like to be that age.
I can kind of remember it.
So I can't speak to that anymore. I don't remember high school. I don't really, hardly. It was a very, very long time ago.
It was Kevin and Dylan, you know, they had a bad synergy between the two. You know, they were driving each other.
That happens sometimes.
They were driving each other to heights. And they were just became these edgelords, you know.
Yeah, you get like two guys together, and it's like if they were by themselves,
they probably wouldn't have done that.
They probably would have been fine, but yeah, they're just like, you know, egging each other on.
And if there was somebody who was, you know, could have slapped the piss out of them and said, "You guys are fucking crazy," you know, to do that shit, man, just it'll blow over. Then they could have been diffused.
Yeah,
they're just kids.
Yeah, true. And it might have been the same with the Lilla Lid slaughter. Also, I mean, if somebody had actually befriended these kids or hung out with them or, you know, just tried because they were very young. I mean,
yeah, I don't know though. I think the synergy there was more of them, and I think the synergy
true. That's like 6 of them.
And I'm not sure how well you could reach through them because I'm not sure I could reach them very well. There was the kind of the socioeconomic barriers.
True.
You know what I mean? Like where they came from was pretty damn rough. It was just one big trailer park. And it was like a broken down trailer park.
Yeah, so they might have just
thought you were full of shit. Yeah, they thought I was the enemy. You know?
Yeah, because you've been like, you don't know where we're coming from.
Yeah, you don't come from. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's really kind of a horrible shame how that happened. At least one of the kids survived, even though his whole family got killed.
Yeah, but surviving family members adopted the boy, though.
Yeah. So it did work out all right, man.
Yeah, my heart's out to that family, the surviving people of that family.
There's actually a documentary about it
when
somewhere.
that happened. That was a waste. That was a waste, and the goth industrial community of that time had nothing to do with that. They wouldn't have liked those kids either.
No, of course not. The Wolf family. And actually, somebody requested that we do a show on this. So, consider this our kind of show on this. Because I needed one more to round it out. And I said, somebody asked us to do this one. Okay. So, let me see. All right. I don't remember where I got this write-up from. It's not very long, but I'm just going to read from that because my voice is going. All right. It was the family's abandoned laundry left flapping on the clothesline that raised the alarm. A neighbor who came to investigate found no one around. Odd for a busy farm. This kind of sounded like Hinterkaifeck, isn't it? He discovered the first bodies in the barn, hastily covered with dirt and hay. His neighbor, Jacob Wolf, and 2 of Wolf's young daughters, Maria and Edna. So they were all dead in the barn. In the basement of the house were 5 more bodies. Jacob's wife, Beata, the rest of their daughters, Bertha, Lydia, and Martha, along with their hired boy, Jacob Hoffer. The children ranged in age from 3 to 12. The hired boy was only 13. They had been killed with a shotgun and a hatchet. The only survivor, the Wolf's 8-month-old daughter Emma, was crying and hungry in her crib. It was April 1920 in the still young state of North Dakota. Even a century later, it ranks among the country's most brutal crimes. So this was, they were a German family. They had come from Russia. And there's actually, and it's pretty creepy, but you can still see, there's photographs of it on the internet. Their grave marker just reads, "The Murdered Family." But in German. I'm like, ew, that's like so weird. So evidently at the funeral for this family, they said one of the mourners was behaving oddly. Henry Layer, who owned a nearby farm, opened each casket in turn and gazed down. Oh, Beijing! Oh, no.
She said, no, let them hand me down.
No. What you doing, baby? Aw, we got the fuzzy kitty on the show. The baby kitty won't be on the show, though.
No, she's pissed.
Yeah. She's like, fuck this. Yeah, okay. So, this guy opened each casket in turn and gazed down at the face inside.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a little unusual. He also raised suspicions when he was discovered prowling around the Wolf barn by the sheriff. He seemed eager to help. Yeah, you always gotta watch those kind of dudes.
He wanted to see what progress the bodies had made
I
that
guess.
he had just killed.
But they did actually arrest him. After a lengthy interrogation, he finally confessed to the slayings and was sentenced to life in prison at hard labor. He died in prison just 5 years later after an operation for appendicitis.
Yay!
He was also a German who had immigrated from Russia. I love this. He's like, he had a large family with 6 children. In his confession, he said he had gone to the wolf farm to confront his neighbor about a dog that had bitten one of his cows. And it just got out of hand.
His cow was probably an asshole, too.
I guess. Now, he says, he's like, this is how it went down. He's like, Layer said it was Wolf who produced the shotgun, a double-barrel shotgun. There was a scuffle, and both barrels went off. The first killings were accidental, Layer said. And after that, he was, quote, in a fog. According to Layer's confession, Beata, 36, and the hired boy.
What's that look?
Yeah.
You're not buying it.
I'm not buying it either.
Okay.
That's some
He was
some
in a
fog.
he was in a murder fog.
That's some fog, yeah. So he's basically saying, well, I didn't mean to shoot the entire family.
I was drunk. I didn't mean it.
Yeah. But I thought he was going to shoot at me first, and then I shot him, then I just shot everybody, because what else are you going to do? Like, what the fuck kind of excuse is that? Yeah. So, yeah. So he says he accidentally shot the wife and the hired kid, but then Jacob, the dad, he came running like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And then Layer shot him.
Oh, so he meant to shoot him first and then the other two. Right, that's how it was accidental?
So he's saying that after that, he just kind of kept it. And he like hit them with a hatchet also. What? So it's like, what kind of... I'm sorry, I don't buy that. Yeah.
Damn.
So he says, he covered the bodies in the barn with hay and pushed the bodies in the house through a trapdoor into the cellar. Then he went home to his own farm. But in prison, he retracted his confession. He said he had been bullied into it and warned that he would be turned over to a murderous mob if he didn't cooperate. And everyone's like,
all right.
Oh, well.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't think they ever let him out, though. But, So the baby Emma, who was 8 months old at the time of the murders, she was the sole survivor of the massacre. She was raised by an aunt and uncle. She lived a long life, dying in 2003 at the age of 84.
Oh, word.
And that was, so good for her. Good. But, that was the Wolf family. This was a really... That was a bummer. Damn it. All of these stories are a bummer. Yeah. I mean, you know. That's what we do, though. That's our show. It's like we always do a bunch of bummer shit. And we make jokes about it, but you have to make jokes about it.
You might as well call it Murder O'Clock.
Because it's,
Murder.
That labor one, though.
Yeah, that's...
that's nasty. It's like...
Okay, and that will do it for our extra long, extra special 100th episode. Hopefully we will have 100 more. If all of you guys want to come with us on the journey.
Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you would like to support the show financially, you can go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. Also, please check out our Zazzle store at zazzle.com/13o'clock, and we have a bunch of t-shirt designs there, and also a tote bag that you can purchase if you would like to. Also, check out our last movie review, which was the 1985 movie Life Force, and we will see you again next week on our totally regular episode 101. Bye.
See you around.